America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Boom, Buck, and Blue podcast. We have finally our third person. Ryan Ramsauer has decided to join us this week. Finally got moved up in Pennsylvania, buddy. Back in Penn State territory, back at home.
Yeah, I had nothing better to do this Friday, so I guess I might as well do this, right?
Yeah, this is what we do on Friday nights now, guys. This is when you get old. This is what you get to do on a Friday night. So look forward to it. But yeah, we... a week ago, we had the week 0, which, what was it? The best game of that week was Nebraska-Illinois. It was college football, but it wasn't college football. This past week was the first. It was week 1. What we all love, know, college football was back. We had a slew of games that were fantastic. We're going to go over the Penn State-Wisconsin game.
Week.
Penn State-Wisconsin was just dynamite. Clemson, Georgia was fantastic. Lots and lots of games. We're going to go over talking about.
Florida State.
Yeah, that game was fantastic. I actually, at halftime, I ended up turning that one off and went to bed. And then I woke up and looked at the score, and I was kind of mad at myself for that one. And sadly enough, OU Tulane was actually a fantastic game. Was not anticipating that, but
I made a joke at the beginning of the game because you guys put their logo on the field to show show some Tulane pride because they had to move their game out of Louisiana. And it was cool, and I told Ross that, you should one-up it and just let them win the game. Ross didn't like that idea.
Yeah, I said, no, that's not going to happen. And then,
then he almost did it.
Yeah, then 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I was like, fuck, we might lose this game. I don't know. He was up there. So, today, today's episode, what we're going to be kind of going over is, after week 1, you always have the way too early overreactions from the country, everybody blowing shit out of proportion. And then we're going to kind of go over our hot takes, what we see so far for week 1 and things we think about. And then we're going to just do a quick dive over, we'll talk about Penn State, what we thought about the Penn State game, and then, what Oklahoma and how they looked. And then Jimmy gives us his thoughts on Ohio State. And then, obviously, then we got our pick'em. So, first and foremost, Jimmy, your overreactions, week 1, what you got, man?
Hey folks, it's Jimmy here, just checking in again from an undisclosed location in Southwest Asia. And I'm going to go ahead and get going right off the bat here. I know Ross gave everybody a real good heads up as to what we're going to be doing tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and start right off the bat. I'm going to start with our week 1 overreactions that people probably need to calm down on. And my first one, I'm going to start with Ole Miss is a contender in the SEC West. I see a lot of people putting a lot of praise on Ole Miss for their decided victory over Louisville. And I'm not going to lie, they looked really good in the first half. I was actually talking to Ryan about this one. They looked really good in the first half. In the second half, not as much. And I will say, they did play, like I said, they did play very well. In particular, Matt Corral had a gang of yards. And 1 touchdown, but it was against Louisville. And Louisville, who was mediocre last year, And if you look at the actual scoring in the second half, they were outscored in the second half 24-17. So I think Ole Miss is good. I think they're going to be good moving forward. I don't think they're a contender in the SEC West. I don't think they're even sniffing it, especially with the way Alabama looked against Miami. Other one, sticking around the SEC, that LSU is done for. And a lot of people who are looking at it from the outside in, it looks like a pretty bad loss against UCLA, who's been down for quite some time now. But I will say they played an experienced UCLA. UCLA is returning 20 starters, and I have them as one of my surprise picks out of the Pac-12 as being better than what they were previously. I'm very high on them, and LSU also has a brand new offensive coordinator and a brand new defensive coordinator. It's their first year. They got 5-star kids all over that field. And they had to deal with Hurricane Ida displacing them. I didn't see exactly where they needed to move for practices or anything along those lines. I don't even know if they even got to practice. But I know that they were displaced because of the hurricane, and then they had to fly across country to a packed Rose Bowl and play a UCLA team that could be better than a lot of people actually thought. I wasn't real high on LSU coming into the year. I actually kind of felt like they might have been a little bit overrated when they were ranked. But I don't think they're going to be so bad this season that Orgeron is going to be fired. I think they'll be good enough. They might have just above a 500 record. But again, I don't have them even sniffing SEC West. And then the last one. This one's near and dear to my heart because it involves our rivals, that team up north. They're back, right? Had a great game against Western Michigan, huh? They looked really good against Minnesota last year, too. And then proceeded to win a game. They went 2-4 last year after blowing Minnesota out. And now Minnesota did not have a great year last year. They had to deal with a lot of injuries. They had to deal with a lot of COVID issues and canceled games, et cetera, et cetera. But they played Western Michigan, who is a good MAC team. But again, it's a MAC team. And in between last year and this year, they didn't do a whole lot to add, in my opinion, to make them a better football team. They lost Joe Milton, who's now starting at Tennessee, and looked pretty good against Bowling Green. Again, another MAC team, but a bad MAC team in that sense. They lost McCaffrey, and I can't remember his first name, but then they also lost Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet, who was running the ball along with Hassan Haskins. And I'll give them props. Like, they looked great against Western Michigan. Like I said, Western Michigan's a pretty good MAC team. But again, it's a MAC team. And they're probably going to get another win this weekend. But I'll go over that later. So those are the only three I could really think of off the top of my head. And we'll go on to the next one.
All right, so those were Jimmy's hot takes. So kind of like the big things he was talking about, Ryan, there, talking about like Ole Miss is a contender in the SEC. I don't see it either, honestly. I mean, they played a nobody. Everybody's trying to jump on the Lane train, but I mean, the SEC still got Alabama, obviously. You got Georgia. Florida's not as good, but they're good. A&M. LSU, Auburn, they're just pummeled with fantastic teams. I think Tennessee's better than they have been in the past.
Yeah.
And just
in Auburn, I thought Auburn was. I was hoping they'd have a down year because Penn State's going to play them in 2 weeks. So, but I mean, they came out and they put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
I forget who they played in nobody as well, but
yeah, but
I was expecting a whole coaching regime change there. I was expecting a down year, but. You never know. Yeah,
but that's kind of like what we say. When you play a nobody and you're a good team, you do what you're supposed to do, which is kick the shit out of them. And that's what Auburn did. Auburn, they played the Akron Zips, and they beat them freaking 60-10. So I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. So I think Ole Miss is contenders. I'm not buying that as well. I mean, I think they're good. I think that quarterback's good. Not saying they can't win the SEC East, but I'm not ready to just kind of hand them the throne and Lane train the throne yet in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm not handing them anything yet. you got to remember they didn't have Lane for that game, so I don't know how many points that trend
true. That is true.
Equates to, but I mean their offense was humming. They did look good, but
I think Coral almost threw. He threw for almost 400 yards. I think it was like 397. Yeah, their offense is going to like keep them in damn near any game. But yeah, I wouldn't be the biggest shock ever to see them win and be in the SEC championship game. But I mean, from what I saw, like. Ole Miss offense would be great, but they still got to play that Georgia defense. And what Georgia's defense did to Clemson, like, okay, let's see you throw against 400 yards against that, because that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but also Georgia's offense only scored 10 points. So
no, correction, their offense only scored 3 points.
Three,
yeah, they got a big 6. Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting going. Other things Jimmy talked about real quick. LSU is done. Honestly, I haven't heard that yet. Or out there. I'm not saying it's not. I just haven't. I'm not sold on it yet that LSU's done. I mean, Ed O is honestly, he's a national treasure. Gotta love Ed Orgeron. And he, like, I don't know the rankings off the top of my head, but they usually do pretty damn well. They're always top 20 recruiting, I think, if not better. Like they're bringing in talent, and because of that, they'll be there. The only reason that they might be done is because their fan base is a little cocky and expects a 10-win season, 11-win season, and that's just not going to happen. And then lastly, Michigan is back. Michigan is not back. I do think so far, we'll see, and this is not stretching it by any means, because Michigan's had absolute shit quarterback play for 5-6 years, maybe longer. God.
When was their last half-assed decent quarterback?
I couldn't even.
How long ago was that?
Denard Robinson. He was on college football in 2014, the last video game. So that was 7 years ago. Was their last decent quarterback?
Yeah, he was exciting to watch. I mean, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but at least he was. Exciting.
Oh yeah, he was. I mean, he gave him a chance. But so it's not a stretch for me to say that I think that their quarterback play, from what I've seen so far, I think is going to be better than they've had the last 2-3 years.
So who do they bring in? Who is?
Well, so oh God, hold on, I'm looking it up. He played the last couple games last year. He threw like 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Played last year a little bit, and they also got the hold on, I'm pulling it up. Sorry, guys. McNamara.
A lot of questions.
Cade McNamara. Yeah. So they had him. You know, he threw. He didn't throw a lot. I mean, shocker. He only threw 11 passes because they smacked the crap out of the team. But completed 82% of his passes, threw 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and had a 250 rating. Okay, that's pretty damn well. Granted, I mean, they ran for 340 yards. So, I mean, they were pummeling the ball, kind of like Michigan. But
And I did hear something today that Michigan is getting back to their roots and getting back to pound the rock, play good defense, you know, kind of take the ball out of the quarterback's hands per se and have him make less decisions and make it easy on him, you know, which is I think would be good for Michigan football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say it is a bummer for Michigan. I didn't watch the game. I just saw the highlights. Ronnie Bell, their wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
Who made the did you see the one-handed catch he made?
Yeah, on the sideline.
Yeah, it ended up being incomplete, but or something. But it was just the most amazing, just out of nowhere went in and grabbed. He's hurt. He's out for the year, which is
Achilles?
Yeah, I think so. And so it's a bummer to see anybody, any kid get hurt for the season. So and that's a big blow to Michigan because they do, like you said, like they like to pound the rock, they like to run the ball. But to do that and do it successfully at a high level, you have to have the weapons on the outside, or at least 1 or 2, like a threat. And Ronnie Bell was that for Michigan. Not saying that they don't have somebody else out there. They could. I don't know Michigan football that well. But, they lost their big gun on the outside, so that's going to be a pummel. So I'm not saying they're back, and I'm not saying they're what they were. I'm kind of got them on pause of let's kind of see. This week they're playing Washington, who we got the pick later, and we'll kind of talk about it a little bit. And Washington's down, but I think that'll give us a lot better judgment on where Michigan stands compared to smacking the hell out of Western Michigan. That doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
My big one, Ryan, we were talking about it a little bit before we got on here of the kind of pump the brakes is the whole give the national title to Alabama. Just hand them the trophy. They looked unstoppable. Give them the trophy. And I'm not saying they didn't. They looked great. However, it was week 1.
Yep.
Ohio State started a freshman quarterback. They're going to be better. They're going to get a lot better. Oklahoma will wake up. They will be good. Georgia, that offense will come around. Clemson, I think, is better than people think. Not saying that Alabama can't win it, but there's a lot of football to be played. A lot of football.
I think on that might come down to preparation. Alabama just might be more prepared for the season coming into every single season. They're just more prepared, and there is no warm-up game. Alabama just hits the ground running. Some other teams, Oklahoma, they struggled against Tulane, but they might come out next week and just fire on all cylinders. The defense will look better. Maybe it takes a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And Alabama are instantly Alabama week 1, and other teams are going to have to catch up, but they will.
Yeah, that's why I put a full season. I remember we were talking during I think it was late on Saturday. Most offensive lines, defensive lines, linebacker secondaries, they're not the same from one season to the next. So it takes a game or two to mesh to know how the guy next to you is going to play. Get that camaraderie and just kind of that gel. Yeah. Alabama doesn't have to gel. They start week 1 at 15 minutes gelled like they've played the last fucking 10 years together, and it's just – and again, that's all prep, and that's why Nick Saban's the greatest of all time. That's what he does. Yep. So don't get me wrong, Alabama looked good. Bryce Young looked fantastic. They got weapons all over the damn field.
You can even see it. You can even see it half to half. Some teams look like absolute trash in the first half, i.e. Penn State.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I know you're going with that one.
Yeah, and in the second half, they start humming it and start getting deep balls and start, pressing the field, and they make adjustments, and, they just work on those week by week by week and get better and better and better.
Yeah, and like I said, and that's what's going to happen. Like you said, Oklahoma's going to wake up. They're too damn talented not to wake up. Ohio State looked pretty damn good against a very good Minnesota team. I think Minnesota, they lost Ibrahim, which is a bummer because he is fantastic.
Yeah, he looked really good.
He's real deal. He is definite real deal. So it's a bummer. So I think I don't know if it's going to hurt Minnesota or Ohio State. Depends on how the season plays out. But the Minnesota team Ohio State played this week is not the Minnesota team that's going to play the rest of the season. So Minnesota might end with a worse record because Ibrahim's not playing. That team that played the first half against Ohio State, that was a damn good football team, and I think they would have won a good chunk of games.
When I was watching that game, I was going down the schedule and saying, holy shit, does Penn State have to play this team because they look good?
Yeah.
Then when Ibrahim went out, it was like, damn, that sucks. They looked like they had something figured out there, and it really sucks that guy went down.
Yeah, he was fun. I watched him last year, I remember, but playing against Ohio State, defenses like Ohio State, and he was literally bouncing off guys and just taking it 20 yards out. It was fun. So,
now, does it worry you at all, that Minnesota was able to put that amount of points on Ohio State? Does that Ohio State had their I'm sure Jimmy has talked about this. Their defensive secondary is just not very good, and for Minnesota to go in there, and if I remember correctly, that was kind of one of your guys' surprise teams this year is how bad Minnesota was going to be.
No, that was not me. No.
Oh, that was Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana. Which Indiana went and got waxed by Iowa. They did look bad. Granted, we'll see what happens with Indiana this week, but yeah, they did look bad. No, I think with Ohio State and worry, I guess, that's kind of what you said. Not particularly right now in the short term. In the long term, yes, and it's kind of like one of the things that going back to kind of talking about Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's gone 0-4, and the college football playoff. And a lot of people believe that that's because the other teams in the Big 12 don't prep OU through the season to get ready to play in Alabama, to get ready to play at Clemson. Like, they get to, like, those teams and they're like, holy shit, what is this? Like, we're not prepped for it. Ohio State's defense, I mean, we'll see what progresses. I mean, Penn State, under your situation, we're going to talk about Penn State here in a little bit. That you guys play them like 8 weeks down the road, so your offense probably will be clicking a little bit better. However, I mean, there's not an offense really like Minnesota that has a pretty darn good passing game and a fantastic running game in the Big Ten, minus Penn State. So I think where I'm not worried is that, because I think it'll be fine in the Big Ten. But again, I don't think that Big Ten offenses are going to prep Ohio State's defense if they get to the college football playoff, and then all of a sudden have to go against an offense like an Oklahoma or an Alabama and be like, oh shit, like, we haven't seen this all year. Like, what are we going to do? Like I said, Penn State's probably the best offensive team that they're going to see all year, other than Minnesota. Oregon, we'll see. I'm not sold on Oregon yet. They barely beat – who the hell did they play? Fresno State. They won 31-24. I'm not sold on them. They do have some good running backs, but I think Penn State's the best offense that they're going to see the rest of the year. So,
and, I mean, CJ Stroud, that's the one thing watching him is, I mean, even the announcers were saying it, just like how calm, like, he is even keeled no matter what. Like, he walks onto the field his first game in a Buckeyes uniform, like starting a game, and he just looked like he's, out for a Sunday round of golf. Like, he doesn't faze him. He threw a couple bad passes and had a bad first half, and he came out the second half and just lit it up and just stayed composed. And that's a really, really good sign for Ohio State. Like, I think that is. I am still on pause about CJ Stroud. Not that he's definitely a good quarterback. There's no question about it. Is he a good quarterback? It's if he's Justin Fields, right? Like,
take you to the next level, which he could be. His numbers in the second half were unbelievable. And if you just look at the numbers, they're great. But if you watch the game, which we all watched the game, he had one that he threw the ball 3 yards to the left to Henderson, and he took it 75 yards to the house.
Correct.
He had one that it was a nice ball, but I think it was Wilson. Maybe that was a crossing route to the right. That was like 15, 20 yards down, and then he kind of like tiptoed on the sideline and just took it another 50 yards to the house. Or maybe that was Olave. Like,
I think it was a big one to Olave.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, they're good. Like, they're nice thrown balls, but they weren't like blow my mind throws. It was more that game to me was more a testament on the playmakers that Ohio State has. Like, they are scary. Right. It's unbelievable.
I mean, we were screaming it like through chat as loud as we possibly could. Like, get the ball to the playmakers. Like, stop trying to do these things. Stop trying to make plays. Just literally throw five and ins and crossing patterns to your playmakers and let them run.
Get the ball in their hands and let them do what they do. And in the second half, they did that, and it was over. Like, it was. Like,
Ryan Day sat him down in the locker room and said, "Hey, you don't need to make every single play. Just throw it to these guys, and they're going to do everything for you."
Right. So again, I don't. And C.J. Stroud did that well. And honestly, with the playmakers he has on the outside, he doesn't have to go win you a game. All he has to do is play good.
Play good. Play good. And week to week, you're going to get better. You're going to get more comfortable. And then maybe by the end of the year,
you'll be ready to play these big dogs.
Playoffs, they're going to have a quarterback that can start winging it. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Not saying C.J. Stroud's a bad quarterback. I just think that kind of, I'm on pause on how good he is. Because, like, when people, like, for instance, ESPN, a lot of people look at the numbers and they're talking about, like, week one quarterbacks, new starters. Because, there's the big thing about Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, all these new starting quarterbacks. And, like, obviously Bryce Young was the number one. And then they're like, well, looking at the numbers, like, C.J. Stroud up there. I was like, Not saying hold on, pause. Like, he's good, but let's give us a second on this one.
I do have to throw this one thing in there. I remember at halftime in that game, both you and Jimmy were talking about maybe putting a different quarterback in because that's how bad he played the first half.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's to me, that's crazy. Like you go in, you make adjustments, coach talks to him, and you figure it out. And that's what they did in the second half. They came out and C.J. Stroud looked like a different guy, like more composed, like got the ball to the playmakers and all that stuff. So you got to give the guy time. And I mean, you do get kind of scared though when you're going against Minnesota and it's a one score. Like was Minnesota leading at halftime or was it?
I think they were leading actually.
Yeah.
At halftime. Well, and I think like the big thing on that one was, I think at halftime, Stroud had, what was it, like 80 yards throwing?
Yeah.
Something like that. Which, when you're...
Yeah, he threw behind Olave or somebody.
Minnesota was up 14-10 at halftime. So Minnesota was up at half.
Mm-hmm.
And incredibly, like, randomly, like, how people take stats and then just go crazy on, like, the randomness of it?
Yeah, Ross.
Well, no, this one, like, I'm talking about, like, when, when baseball announcers are like, oh, that's the first hit when the temperature is 74 degrees in the month of...
When Bill bought a beer in the third row.
Right, exactly. Like, when they do shit like that. I read something like that today about, like, Ohio State, and they're talking about the big game this week, which is Oregon and Ohio State. And I guess, obviously I didn't notice this, but when C.J. Stroud had, like, 85% of his passing success throwing to the left side of the field. He did not do well throwing. He had that one pass that was a crossing pattern on the right. Other than that, it all went to the left.
Isn't that backwards, though? Don't usually right-handed quarterbacks throw better to the right?
I don't know. But, I mean, so, like they're sitting there.
I'd assume you have a better view of the field on the right side. But,
so the big question that people are bringing up is, like, C.J. Stroud. Like, granted, the question is Thibodeau going to play for Oregon because he's day-to-day. He is the best player in the country. He is a freak of nature.
Next to Sean Clifford, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously. But, I mean, if you're throwing to the left against Oregon, that is Thibodeau running right into your face.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that. But anyways, yeah, so going back, overreactions, Alabama, they hand it to them. Not saying they can't do it, but just hold on, guys. Like, there's some very good football teams out there. There's some pretty darn good football teams that are going to get better. Like, Penn State is one of them that I think is going to get better. And we'll talk about them here in a second. Like, with Yursich, and this is the third offensive coordinator in 3 years. That's a lot. Right. They're going to get better. I think Penn State, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Georgia's offense is going to wake up. Let's see what the hell happens, people.
Yeah.
Like, this
if old boy gets his oblique fixed, which is kind of interesting.
I saw that, JT Daniels.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the same injury Dak had, but
I don't know. I mean, granted, he's probably not playing this week, but Georgia plays UAB this week, so
yeah, he'll sit this week.
They'll sit him, rest him, get him ready to go, get him ready for the SEC schedule. But yeah, I mean, this is why we love college football, is because we have no damn clue what is going to happen over the next 12 weeks.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The overreactions are kind of crazy. Clemson is going to be good, and so we talked about this before we got on here. The ACC. I mean, every single team in the ACC lost except the teams that played other ACC teams.
Right. Yeah. They're
like Virginia Tech won. That's because they played North Carolina and they got they beat them up.
Yeah. I think there's some teams in the ACC that are better than. Like, I don't think ACC is terrible, but I think some of the teams are flopped. Like, for instance,
I think you got more parity in it. Like Virginia Tech's better, Florida State's better. Therefore, like, North Carolina is not going to look like the second best team in the ACC anymore. They're going to fall back into the pack because the other team's kind of caught up, which is maybe good for the ACC. Maybe
the whole North Carolina is going to go 11-1 that's not going to happen. Like, no. I think I watched that North Carolina Virginia Tech game. I like Virginia Tech. I think they're a fun football team. I like that quarterback.
I've always Virginia Tech, the Beamer, like,
going back to Beamer ball,
watching Beamer ball, like, watching the emphasis on special teams and those, like, and watching Michael Vick.
Yeah, I was about to say Michael Vick. Michael Vick helped.
Virginia Tech has always been a fun team to watch, and that's a good thing for college football to have Virginia Tech be not a powerhouse, but being a respectable team.
Well, because I mean, Blacksburg, Virginia, like, that entrance is one of the most awesome things I've ever seen. Is the Inner Sandman. The whole place is going, and like the thing is, like, Penn State holds what, like 125?
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ohio State. I mean, like Oklahoma, I think we're like the 9th biggest. We hold like 85. Blacksburg only holds like 60, but it is just louder than shit.
Yep.
So I agree. And like when you started, Clemson, you lost Georgia. A lot of people have Georgia winning the national championship. So Clemson losing to them, it's not a big deal. Like DJ Oogie, I'll never say his name right. He's good. He didn't have a good game. The offensive line is concerned because he got sacked like fucking 8 times.
Every single time I turned around, he was getting sacked. Yeah, it was that off, and that might be a testament of Georgia's defense and the way they rush the passer.
Yeah, their scheme or something like.
And you wonder if ETN not being there, like maybe ETN was the guy that held, like, the glue that held it there. It's like
picking up the
transition to Cowboys, but like Zeke had a terrible game last night. Didn't have very, very many yards at all, but they pointed it out over and over again how he picks up the blitz. Like, maybe having ETN and having that, like, veteran guy there to block for Ugalele.
Ugalele or something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
be what I'm calling that. Yeah.
Well, and don't get me wrong, Georgia's defense is, it's legit. It is very legit. Yeah. It's one of the tops of the country. However, I mean, I'm looking at the stats from that game. It was a one-score game, pretty much the whole damn game.
Yep.
Do you know how many times, take a wild guess, how many times Clemson running backs ran the ball?
7.
Combined. 9 times. 9 times. They had one guy with 1 carry and 2 with 4. Granted, they didn't. Like, you got to be, like, even if you're not doing it well, you still have to run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead. Especially if the passing. I mean, if the passing game's not working, and if you adjust and if they're stacking a box and then you're running wide receiver screens out to the outside and getting the ball to the outside to your playmakers and getting the ball upfield, and that's working, then you stop running the ball, and that's okay. But if that's not working and you can't run the ball, then you got to start
doing something.
You got to run the ball.
Yeah.
You got to just keep it, keep them honest or whatever.
Yeah, and kind of just not transitioning to them, but kind of bringing up again last night, the Cowboys Tampa Bay game, because that's the most recent one on all of our brains. But, I mean, Tampa Bay's defense is legit. You don't run the ball against Tampa Bay because you have
Vita Vea
and Sue. You don't do that. So what you do, Dallas attacked the outsides. They went outside, and it worked.
Really well.
Yeah. Clemson didn't do that. Like, you didn't want to run the ball against Clemson or there against them, but then, like, the passing game just worked. Like, bubble screens, like, something. You got to do some quick hitters to get yourself in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7. Like, get something on first down. And so,
who's their OC or who's calling plays there?
Is it Dabo? I have no idea.
Yeah, see, all I know is I know their defensive coordinator. And I know
Tony Elliott.
Okay, see, yeah. I'm not saying they need to make a change, but
so interesting.
There should have been changes made in that game to say, okay, hey, we need to get the ball to the outside. We need to abandon the running game. We need to whatever. We need to spread the defense out so they can't get 8-10 sacks on the quarterback.
Yeah, so he was the running back coach from 2015 to 2020.
Okay, so he's brand new.
Yeah, he's new. So his, like you're talking about, being able to go in, make adjustments to something, it might just not have it right now. Which, if that's the case, Clemson could be in trouble. Clemson could be in some serious trouble.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it's a big problem, but they're not going to play Georgia
No, they're not.
They're going to play Georgia for a long time. They're going to have to play North Carolina, and they're going to have to play,
Yeah, I mean,
Florida State and Miami, and these guys that aren't, their defenses aren't near on the level.
they play South Carolina State tomorrow, just so.
Okay.
They're going to light it up. They're going to score 70, and everybody's
Not the Gamecocks.
not South Carolina. South Carolina State, which I don't even know what the hell they are. But so they're going to light it up tomorrow. The Bulldogs. There's a lot of overreactions going on now. Week 1. I will. Next, we're going to kind of go over not our own overreactions, but our hot takes going in to after Week 1, kind of what we think. Jimmy, hot takes, what you got?
All right, I'm back, and this time we're going to be going over some of my own personal hot takes. I'm not much for putting up a lot of hot takes, so these might be kind of lukewarm, I guess you could say. But I'm going to go hot takes right off the bat with another one of our recent rivals that Ohio State has that I actually, at this point in time, dislike more than I dislike Michigan. Clemson. Clemson's offense might be in big trouble. I will say that Georgia's defense might be great. It might be the best defense in the entire country. Who knows? But me and Ross have said it multiple times. If your offense is going to be considered great, they score against great defenses. And Clemson did not score a touchdown. Not a single touchdown. They scored 6 points, and that's 2 field goals. DJ had, was it 6 points or was it 3? I'd have to look that up later. All I know is they didn't score. There wasn't a single offensive touchdown scored in that entire game. The difference of the game was I believe it was a pick 6 by Georgia. And Clemson didn't score a single point until the fourth quarter. That means they didn't even get within field goal range until the fourth quarter. And again, I will state, Georgia's defense might be great. But again, if you got to consider yourself a national contender, you've got to be able to score against great defenses. And Clemson just didn't do it. It's week 1. It's a tough matchup. I'll give them that one. But here's another issue. The team only rushed for 2 yards. That's right. You heard me. 2 yards for the entire game. Losing ETN might have been a big loss, that is for sure, and it's looking so like it might be the case. I still believe in DJ Uiagalelei. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's going to be great. It's a week 1 game, and it's a tough week 1 game. But you got to win. You got to score. You can't win if you don't score. Next hot take. I think FSU could be a contender in the ACC. They took it to a ranked Notre Dame, who might have been overrated, but I didn't think Notre Dame looked bad. They looked pretty good in that game, ultimately. They just took them a little while to get going, and to be fair, Notre Dame was not returning a whole lot of starters. I believe they ranked around in the 120s, similar to Ohio State in terms of maybe even lower. I think they only returned 4 starters on offense and a brand new starting quarterback. But eventually they came around, they got it close, and I think they ended up coming back. But Florida State looked really good, and it could be a fluke. Notre Dame could be not great. But looking at that game, they were way more hyped for it than Notre Dame, and they were ready to go, And hey, shout out to Mackenzie Milton getting on the field after almost losing his leg. That's no joke. Look it up. And they really took it. And in a loss, if you were to say this is a good loss or a bad loss, you look at that game and you're like, that's a good loss, especially for Florida State, who's been really bad for about 5 to 10 years. They can still bring in the talent. They're able to bring in those scores. And I like Mike Norvell. I loved him when he was at Memphis. He was great at Memphis. And I think it's just going to take some time. Jimbo Fisher might have actually just straight up said, we're going to win, and we're going to win at no cost, with no care, and really screwed up that culture. And Mike Norvell's trying to fix all that, and it looks like it's starting to work because, like I said, they really took it to Notre Dame. They had a chance to tie it up. Anyway, but look into the way they played and how the ACC fared through week one, which was not very good. I could see them beating a North Carolina, maybe a Miami or Va Tech. Like Virginia Tech looked really good against who did they play? They beat UNC. And UNC looked flat. Virginia Tech looked hyped. They're like Virginia Tech defense is there. But the way Florida State was playing against Notre Dame, I mean, it's a game. I don't know if they're necessarily going to win, but I could see it being a coin toss, being close. Next hot take. I think Florida is in for a rude awakening. They had Florida Atlantic week one, which isn't that big of a deal, and they beat them. And they did have 553 yards of offense, but Emory Jones is not that guy. He went 17 for 27 for 119 yards and a touchdown and 2 interceptions. And all the talk now is the backup, and I can't remember his name. Anderson, I think is his last name. Came in and looked smooth, looked comfortable. And Emory Jones, he's going to be your runner, but last season they were a passing team. And maybe they're transitioning to being a rushing team. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know who they have this week, but it's week one, so there's not a whole lot we can go on. And that's the thing, is transitioning them from a passing team to a rushing team. That's a big change in an offensive identity. They had 11 people rush the ball. And if they're going to try that against Georgia, which is in the SEC East, mind you, I just told you they stopped Clemson. They held Clemson to 2 yards rushing. You try to do that against Georgia, good luck. You're in for a long day. You got to be able to make those mid-range to downfield passes. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it against Georgia. And I think Iowa is going to run the table in the Big Ten East. I didn't see anything special out of Wisconsin, which is the only other team that I can think of out of the West off the top of my head that could give them any sort of trouble. Wisconsin was really flat against Penn State. I don't want to discredit Penn State's defense. Their defense was great. Like I already talked, I'll talk about their game in a minute here. But Northwestern, who was ranked, they got mud stomped by Michigan State. Shout out to Kenneth Walker III, who had like 264 yards and I think 3 or 4 touchdowns. Just an insane stat. And so I made this claim a couple years ago after week one that Mike Weber was a dark horse Heisman candidate. I ended up, that was a year that he was also sharing carries with J.K. Dobbins, who's one of the greatest running backs out of Ohio State in the history of Ohio State. And I, eat my words on that one. I'll never live that one down. But this kid could be something special. Michigan State against Northwestern. Northwestern normally brings in great defenses, really physical defenses, really grinds them out, and he was getting chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. Just completely destroyed Northwestern. And then Minnesota just lost to Ohio State and their best offensive weapon in the process. So if you take that Iowa team that I saw against, who did they play? I can't remember who they played, because I'm old and my brain no worky. But if I see that Iowa team go up against the Minnesota team without Mo Ibrahim, I got Iowa every day of the week, especially if it's at night in Ames, or not in Ames, in Iowa City, because you just don't do that. Don't schedule Iowa at night in Iowa City. That's just dumb. Don't do that. So those are my hot takes for this week.
All right. Yeah, Jimmy had 4 good ones in there. One of them I don't really think is a hot take, really, was the Iowa running the table in the Big Ten West. Yeah, Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is better. I mean, people are kind of just writing them off because Penn State beat them this week, but that doesn't mean they're a bad football team. So I wouldn't call that a hot take. I mean, Iowa's I think they're ranked 10th in the country right now. So to say the 10th ranked team in the country is going to run the table in their conference is not the most bold statement I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I mean, they do have to play Wisconsin, and that was kind of my overreaction, is Wisconsin's not as bad as they looked this week. I think Penn State's defense played lights out. I think their quarterback fumbled the ball twice inside the 5-yard line, and they got 0 points out of it. I think this kind of goes against my hometown team. That I think Penn State played well and their defense played well, but Wisconsin left a shit ton of points.
Wisconsin shot themselves in the foot a lot.
Yes, and
they did.
I think Mertz. So he had one good game last year. Did he get hurt last year?
Yeah, well, so I can't remember if he got hurt or got COVID, but he pretty much played the one game, and then when that's what it was. He played the one game, threw for stupid yards against Illinois, got COVID, and then when he came back after that, it just wasn't the same. He didn't show that after that. So,
Wisconsin, I think, is still a pretty good team. I don't know if I was going to run the table, but Iowa looked really damn good last week.
They did. They did look good.
Game of the week this week.
Yes,
Iowa State.
That's a lot of people.
By the way, I hate the name of that game, the Cyhawk.
The Cyhawk? I love that. The Cyhawk Trophy? I think it's awesome.
So here, also I have to touch on this. I think jump around is overrated, and I'm not a big fan of it.
I love it.
It's just, they talk about it, and Gus Johnson was like, "That's the best new tradition in college football," and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah. And then I watched it, and I was like, "Yeah, it's all right." It was okay. I actually, speaking of Iowa, I prefer Iowa's thing.
The wave.
Turn the lights off, and they have the wave, and all the kids
to the children's hospital. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the cool. That might be my favorite. I'm a big, obviously, Penn State fan. I love the whiteout. That's great college football tradition. But Iowa's thing they got going on there is, it's touching every time you see it.
I know. And don't get me wrong, I love it. And I feel like I'm hating on children's hospitals because I'm not. Because I do love that. But like we talked about earlier, Blacksburg Enter Sandman is one of the coolest damn things I've ever seen.
That's pretty cool shit.
But going to Wisconsin, I don't know how. It's gonna be interesting to see how long they can sustain this because they have. Ohio State, talking about the Big Ten in general, the teams that have been at the top the last, I don't know, however long, Ohio State and Penn State have been up there. And you guys, obviously, you play your defense, and you're good at it. But over the years, you guys have moved from the I formation, pounded up your ass 50 times a game, to more, you still run the ball very well, but you also spread it out. Throw the ball, especially Ohio State, and just because that's the way college football is going, that's the way of the future. Wisconsin hasn't gone that long. They're trying to stick to their guns of just.
Yeah, they don't do that.
No, and I don't. They still win.
Their best playmakers are tight end.
Yeah,
and it's obvious. Every defense can see it. That's why Jaquan Brisker, not to get into Penn State, but Jaquan Brisker saw that in the red zone, they're only going to their tight end. They're not throwing the ball anywhere else, and that's how he got that pick,
Yeah. So Wisconsin does what they do, and they're good at it. Don't get me wrong. However, the game, I don't want to say it surpassed them because they still do win a good chunk of games, but I don't see Wisconsin running this offense ever winning a national championship ever.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
I don't see it either.
So I think Wisconsin still can be a pretty darn good football team. I agree with you on that, Ryan. I don't see them being just the way they play offense. I just don't get it.
Right, but I just mean that the Big Ten West is not just going to be an Iowa conference for a while. Wisconsin's still there. Wisconsin is going to struggle against Iowa, and Iowa's going to struggle against Wisconsin. It's going to be a battle. And
you got Nebraska, obviously. So
I think we all agree on this. We all like Scott Frost, and we all think that Scott Frost is
time to go.
Time to go. Whatever you tried to do there just didn't work, and they got to figure something out and get rid of it.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I hate when conferences are split up like this, and Alabama was like that for a while because you do have Georgia on the other side, but when Georgia's a down year, there's nobody else on that other side. You got Missouri, and you got whoever's else in that conference.
Yeah,
it's a weak ass conference in the SEC, and you got one super strong conference. That's the problem with the Big Ten. You got Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State all on one side, and those are perennially. I'm not going to say the word, but they are normally the top 3 teams in the conference, and it's like when you're top heavy like that on one side of the conference, it's not, I don't think it's good. There needs to be more parity. Like I wish Nebraska was better. I wish Wisconsin was better. I wish, like maybe Iowa's the next team that steps up and plays better. And
maybe somebody's got to at some point. I mean, it was kind of the same thing back in before Nebraska and A&M and Missouri left in Colorado. I mean, the Big 12. In the North, we had Nebraska and Kansas State and Colorado. In the South was Oklahoma State, Texas. This was back with Baylor and TCU. It's like, all right, whoever won the South
was A&M there?
Yeah, A&M was there. So it's like, all right, whoever wins the Big 12 South is going to win the conference. Like, it's over. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, and you guys are a lot the same. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, and I talked about it, I think, last episode, episode before that, kind of talking about the conference championship games. The Big Ten conference championship game just doesn't interest me because I know whoever wins the East is going to win, and it's going to win, and they're going to win probably pretty handedly. Like, it's like, I know you guys, it's your conference, so obviously you're going to watch it, and I get that, and there's no judgment on that. But it's like, for me, I mean, like, if Ohio State or Penn State's in it, yeah, I'll watch the game because you guys' team. But I'm not excited about it. I'm not like, oh shit, this game. Not like when you have like an Alabama, Georgia in the SEC championship, and you're like, fuck, here we go. This is fun. Or last year when we had Clemson and Notre Dame again, like, we were stoked for that game.
That was fun.
Yeah, like the Big Ten championship game is not that way.
Especially when Wisconsin is like not. I mean, when it's Ohio State versus Northwestern, I mean that is not an enticing game.
That game ends up on the Big Ten Network on any other week of the season. It's on it's not even mainstream TV. It's you have to have the Big Ten Network to be able to watch that game. So.
Okay, so what was your?
My big thing that kind of my hot take going forward is I think UCLA is real deal this year. I do. I like what they've done so far. Chip Kelly coaching for his job, pretty much. I think from what what's been going out there, but LSU is not what they were, obviously 2-3 years ago. Whatever, but they're still a pretty darn good football team. They're still a good SEC team, and I watched that game. And UCLA, like, they controlled the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively, which you never expect a Pac-12 team to do that to any SEC team unless it's Vanderbilt. The quarterback ran the ball. They got some good running backs. They're starting to run that. I think he's finally starting to get the playmakers on the outside and that running back when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, running these ends arounds and these spread things and spreading the ball out, and you got dudes going this all sorts of ways, and they're gone. And I think he's finally got that. I don't think they're going to. They would. I think they are my dark horse making it to the college football playoff, but a very dark horse. A lot of that has to do with I'm not sold in the Pac-12. Oregon, USC.
But if UCLA runs the table in the Pac-12, I mean, you got to give them the.
Yeah, they're there. If they run if they run the table in the Pac-12 and win the Pac-12 championship, there's no questions asked. They're in. Like that's non-debatable. You're in.
And that's interesting. You talked about that. Like, people forget how good. Oregon was like Chip Kelly's Oregon teams were at running the ball.
Oh yeah,
and dominating the offensive line and doing these like this running game that they do is very fancy and all this stuff, but it's still a
running game.
Downhill running game, like getting it out to the edges and just the big athletic offensive linemen that can do those things. And we kind of wrote Chip Kelly off like he had his stint in the NFL. Didn't work, and then he's gone to UCLA, and it hasn't worked up until now. But that's probably because he hasn't had his guys, and now that he has his guys,
but a lot of that has to do. And don't get me wrong, I was in that same boat about Chip Kelly. Like, first off, I'm still not sold on the Pac-12. But we're talking about UCLA running the table. As of today, in the AP, they have the number 12, 14, 16, 21, and 23rd ranked teams in the country. If you got that in your conference and you run the table,
you're good.
You're in. Like there's,
Yep.
like, and you're not just good. You're not the 4 seed. You're probably a 2 or 3 seed. But going back to like UCLA a little bit, and like you're talking about Chip Kelly and how it hasn't worked, and I would agree with that. But I fell in the same category probably that you did, and a lot of other people did. Is like we just looked at wins and losses.
Yep.
Which, granted, that's the only thing that counted. So they went 3-4 last year, UCLA, which that's what people see. They lost by 4 points, 3 points, 5 points, 1 point. They lost 4 games by a total of 12 points.
Also, I write all of last year off.
Well, yeah, and that's true. But I mean, like when you sit there, like, oh, they went 3-4. It's like, okay, but if you actually look at it, they like every game that they lost, they were right. Like they could have very easily gone 7-0 last year, very easily, one play. So I think he's finally got the point. So that's kind of my seeing. And granted, I will say it's cheating a little bit because UCLA played week 0 and week 1, so I've got to see them play twice when everybody else have got to see play once. But yeah, I like UCLA. I like what he's doing there, and I think they're going to be a force out there in the Pacific, like on the Pacific Coast, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So I guess my hot take is the ACC is still bad. I don't know how to word that better. I mean, and Ross and I talked about this a little bit before, but maybe that's because there's more parity in the ACC and that these teams are better. I think the mid-tier teams have caught up to the other teams. I still think. I mean, Clemson is by far
head and shoulders
above everybody else times 100. And
I
think Florida. It's good to see Florida State kind of have some life back.
Yeah, they showed life. I won't say they're back. They showed life.
They showed life. Yeah.
Well,
and,
I mean,
I wasn't sure what was going on with the quarterback situation there. Like was it Milton?
Well, so they played the guy that started last year.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, and he's a true sophomore. He's a young kid. He's more of an athletic, running the ball kind of guy. But he just was playing all right. And then so they just needed a spark, so they put in Milton, and he came in 2 drives and led to 2 scoring drives. And
they were damn close to winning that game.
Yeah, they were against a pretty good Notre Dame team. Well, in the ACC, for the last, I don't know what it's been, like 3 or 4 years, everybody's just been waiting for Miami to take that next step. Like they've been good, but they haven't taken that next step. And I think people have been waiting for them to be the next. I think a lot of people were thinking Miami and North Carolina really were going to be the ones that step up and challenge Clemson in the ACC. And Miami proved in week 1 that they're not that guy. You're not that guy.
And North Carolina also proved it.
You're not that guy. And it just shows Clemson. Clemson's probably down. And like we talked about a little earlier, they could have some problems with the offense stuff. But with the way the ACC is, they're probably going to run the table in the ACC and be in the college football playoff.
They will not play a defense like Georgia until, and I say this with confidence, until they get to the playoffs.
They don't. So I'm looking at their schedules right now. They play South Carolina State, Georgia Tech, NC State, Boston College, Syracuse, Pitt, Florida State, Louisville, UConn, Wake Forest, South Carolina. Yeah,
they're gonna mow through them and
by 30 points on average.
And QBU is gonna be pretty damn good. I mean, he's gonna have a lot of time to get shit together, get that offense rolling. Maybe they find a running back that they can use and.
Yeah, they got to figure out that running game. But yeah, I agree. I think the ACC is just not good, and Clemson's still going to run the table. People. I think the overreaction of the Georgia Clemson game of Georgia won, and people are like, oh well, Clemson's offense looked like shit. Well, you're picking Georgia to make the national championship. Georgia's offense didn't look too much fucking better. Like,
No,
that,
it
like,
would be just as bad.
yeah. So why?
Yeah, what happens when Georgia runs into Alabama?
Yeah.
Like, that's,
Oh, ugh, God.
yeah.
So, so yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, lots of football to be played. Big things. I know what everybody's already waiting for. The four of you out there. The deep dives of each other's teams. Here, like we're gonna get Jimmy first. Jimmy talks a little bit about Penn State and Oklahoma, and then he goes into a deep dive of Ohio State. We're gonna get his takes. And then me and Ryan will kind of give our quick hits about Ohio State, and then talk about Penn State and Oklahoma. So Jimmy, show me what you got.
All right, now we're into the section where we're going to be talking about giving a rundown of our each individual teams. Ross and Ryan, I'm sure they're going to go ad nauseum about Penn State because they tend to talk about Penn State a lot, which is fine. But I'm sure they'll talk about OU as well. But I just want to give my 2 cents as a non-Penn State fan, a non-OU fan, but just a college football fan. Penn State win. That was a big win. It was a big win, especially after the issues they had last season. And it's a tough environment. Wisconsin is not an easy place to play. It's usually loud. It's usually rowdy. Ryan shared a in our chat. He shared an article. It said I jumped around and it wasn't all that. And then I read the article, and then the guy doesn't even talk about jump around at all. And I like jump around. I think it's cool. I'm not putting it up there in the top like 5 or top 10 of college football traditions, but it's a good one. And I don't want to discredit Penn State, but Wisconsin didn't look too tough. Graham Mertz, who showed up and threw like 5 touchdowns against Illinois in their season opener last year, and then really fell off the table. It looks like he's still off the table right now. He didn't play great. And again, I don't want to discredit Penn State's defense because their defense did look really good. In particular, I think it was Bisker, I think is his name. That kid's a star and better be an All-American. I just hope he stays healthy. He was a little banged up, ultimately ended up coming back. I want him to be on the field because Penn State is going to be difficult moving forward. And I say that knowing full well that we have to play Penn State every year out of the East. And that defense was very good. And I will give them that. Now on to Oklahoma. I'm going to go ahead and give Oklahoma a brand new mascot. You guys ready? And Ross, I want to hear what you think about this one. We're going to call them the Oklahoma University Bipolar Roller Coasters. Because this game, they came out really flat, right? They came out really flat. Then in the second quarter, come in hot. Like, all right, there's Spencer Rattler. There's the Heisman favorite that everybody was talking about. There's the scoring teams, you know? And then second half comes around and they score 3 points and let Tulane back in the game. Like, this is something that's becoming a problem. Like, it's been a problem. And with Lincoln Riley is they just like, all right, we got a comfortable lead. Let's just ease back on this gas pedal here. No, long stretches of no scoring. Just keep your foot off the gas. Score, score, score. You're going to make a statement. And especially against Tulane, who came in all juiced up, right? A Tulane team that also was displaced by Hurricane Ida. They were practicing in Alabama, then flew out to OU for a quote-unquote home game against a smaller OU home crowd. Like, you could probably count on one hand the amount of Tulane fans that were in that stadium. Like, it's a hostile of hostile environments. And I do want to give a shout out to OU for putting the green wave on the field. That was really classy of them. Like, OU is for sure a classy program when it comes down to things like that. But OU needs to have, to me, I'm going to say the idea of them having a quote unquote killer instinct. It's not there. OU didn't have a killer instinct. And maybe it has to do because they're thin in certain areas, but I don't know. It's really strange, but it's something that I noticed along the lines with Lincoln Riley over the past few years, and Ross can back me up on this one. Now, on to my favorite team, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They took on Minnesota in a nationally televised Thursday night game. I hate Thursday night games, but, still got to watch my Buckeyes play, so I'm not complaining. and it was in a win. So I'm just going to go over a couple of things. I'm going to start with the things that I liked because I like to start with positivity. Mayan Williams is a dude. If you want to talk about dude alert, this guy is a dude. And coming in as a freshman last year, he was a bit overweight. Needed to lose some of that weight and then get in just to get in better shape. And he's done it. He's gotten in great shape, and now could very much be. He was the starter. He was the starter. He jumped Master Teague. Master Teague was the ipso facto starter last year after J.K. Dobbins left, and didn't step up to the stage. And Mayan Williams is like, all right, now it's my turn, and he did. He lived. He I think he led everybody in touches, and then Travion Henderson, who's right behind him. Master T got some touches. I think he got the second amount of touches. Mayan Williams got the most amount of touches, and then Travion Henderson was right after him. But Master Teague didn't touch the ball at all in the second half. It was all Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. I think that says it all right there. I said it before the season even started. Master Teague, ran a roughshod over certain teams last year, and I believe it was against Indiana, and he's the third best running back on this team right now. Mayan Williams is the guy. I think eventually it's probably going to be in Travion Henderson because he showed flashes of what he could do. But I think right now it's Mayan Williams. And like I said, Trey Henderson's going to be battling for the RB1 slot. Only touched the ball 3 times, but it was magical when he got touch of it. C.J. Stroud came in nervous, and he said that after the game. He said that as much. Came in with a lot of juice, had some overthrown balls, had some less than accurate throws on the run, some strange decision making. Like instead of running to gain some yardage, he was only like running to the line and then running out of bounds. It's hard to explain, but ultimately he went into the half, got his composure. Second half played really, really well. I didn't look up his QBR, but I guess he had a really good QBR rating, and I think he's in the top 10 for QBR or special QBR out of the NCAA or whatever it is, like the 200 some, not the 8. I think he was like a 85. And here's the thing that I noticed in his play that changed. First half, it seemed like he was trying to do too much. He was trying to be Justin Fields. And here's the truth. C.J. Stroud is not Justin Fields, and that's okay. He realized he doesn't need to be Justin Fields because that kid, and I said it during when we talked about our team going into the season, he is surrounded by talent. And that's exactly what he did. All he needed to do was get the ball into the playmaker's hands. And that's exactly what happened. Travion Henderson with that long screen pass, which I haven't seen like a straight up vanilla screen pass out of Ohio State in I don't know how long. And then I will say he did have a great throw off his back foot to Chris Olave for a deep touchdown pass, which was really nice. But that being said, Ohio State has, in my opinion, and probably in a lot of people's opinions, the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the country. They got the best wide receiver core in the country. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, both had 2 scores. And I think Chris Olave led the way with 100-plus yards receiving, but Garrett Wilson was number 2 and not far behind, specifically in scoring. And for that to be able to happen, the offensive line gave C.J. Stroud plenty of time. Made him feel very comfortable. And so all of that, like the offense is not a concern of mine. I'm not too concerned about CJ Stroud at quarterback because once he realizes that, he lets the game come to him and he's able to make those plays and he gets those jitters out of the way, he gets the reps, the game time reps that are so important for players when they're going to be a starting quarterback. And I think he's going to get better. I don't think he's going to be Justin Fields, but I'm not looking at him as a liability. Not like what I was thinking maybe this was a bad choice at the beginning. I'm really glad Ryan Day stuck with him for the entire game and kept going and allowed him to make those mistakes and allowed him to get his feet under him, get comfortable, Ended up coming back and winning, playing really well. Um, what I didn't like, defense was not where I want it to be. It wasn't great, not terrible. Uh, they did give up 203 yards rushing, and 163 of those were to Mo Ibrahim, who had 30 touches. Like 30 touches, if you got a hot hand, you're getting 30 touches, you're going to get yards. And he had a couple of big chunk plays, but to be honest with you, Mo Ibrahim is at this, well, before he got hurt, was the best running back in the entire Big Ten until Kenneth Walker went off. But I still think Mo Ibrahim is a better running back than Kenneth Walker the third at this point, even though the stats might say otherwise. And it sucks that Mo Ibrahim's out for the entire year. It's very likely a ruptured Achilles, which has not been reported. But if you go back and you look at, there are multiple doctors who have watched it and they're like, yeah, that's got the signs of a ruptured Achilles, which really sucks because he came back for his senior year because he wanted to win with his boys. He wanted to, take it to the West and try and beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. But it looks like that's not going to happen this year. Hopefully, he gets a medical red shirt and he can come back. Or, if he makes his decision to go pro, I think he's still got to hold a lot of stock. And that being said, at points they had like 6 O linemen on the field and a tight end for extra blocking. They had a weird sort of old school, hat on hat. Let's give Mo Ibrahim a wall and then he'll make the moves, and it worked. And a lot of that had to do with Ohio State starting 3 brand new linebackers. And I say brand new because they weren't starters before. They've been in the program for a while, like Taraji Mitchell, who's been there for a couple of years, Dallas Gant, who's been there for a couple of years, Dallas Gant out of Toledo, Ohio, by the way. Shout out to my hometown. And Corey Simon, who got that real nice delayed sack late in the game, who's a true freshman. Like these guys don't have a whole lot of game experience. And they made an adjustment in the second half, and they were able to limit the amount of chunk plays from Mo Ibrahim before he got hurt, and really limited the rest of the running game by Minnesota by a lot. Like I said, they rushed for 203 for the entire game. 160 of them were Mo Ibrahim. The rest of it was 40 yards was the rest of the team. The rest of the team only rushed for 40 yards total, and I think it was like 3 or 4 guys got chances to run the ball. So they looked better as the game went on. I will say our strong point on defense is still the defensive line. Zach Harrison, 5-star out of Olentangy, Ohio, finally kind of shined and got himself a strip sack. I still would like to see a lot more pressure, but I don't want to undercut Minnesota anymore, but their offensive line is enormous and experienced. I think they had like 3 or 4 seniors on that offensive line, and they're huge. And you got to give them I got to give them credit where credit is due. Like they were eating up Ohio State for big chunk plays for a big chunk of that game. Haskell or Rascal Garrett still running roughshod. He did not have as great of a game as he has had in the past. But again, I got to give credit to where Minnesota's offensive line, they were just beating us at certain points. But, there were things to shine. And I said that strip sack by Zach Harrison, that Haskell or Rascal Garrett was right there to be able to grab it and run it for a touchdown. And it was John Madden. One thing I love about big man touchdowns is big man touchdown dances. And he didn't get to dance because, the taunting rule in the NCAA and the no fun league and all that stuff. But, he was in his head. It's one of those kind of things where you hit a great shot, you're trying to play it cool, but in your head, you're having a freaking party. The other thing I don't like about the defense is the injuries in the secondary. That was our bugaboo for Ohio State's defense last year. They ranked 122nd in yards given per game passing. And I was hoping they'd be able to come in and kind of shore that up. And they did. They did a good job. I don't look at Minnesota, and I don't think that they're a great passing team. They were able to pass the ball pretty well. But the problem is they gave up 206 yards passing, but they were out 2 starting quarterbacks, with experience, Seven Banks and Cam Brown. Both of them. No, seven. I think Seven Banks didn't even. No, I'm sorry. Seven Banks did travel, tried to warm up, decided that he wasn't ready to go, and the medical staff said, "Go ahead and sit." And Cam Brown didn't even make the trip to the game. Like he didn't fly to Minnesota. So you've got two of your big name starting cornerbacks out. And you're starting Denzel Burke, who's a true freshman. This kid is 18 years old, and his first game is a nationally televised game in the rain against, in my opinion, a pretty good Minnesota team. And then you lose Josh Proctor as your safety. Josh Proctor was going to be the safety. That was one of the issues that Ohio State had last year when it came down to the passing defense. Was we had a really bad play at the safety position. Josh Proctor, who played a little bit last year, played really well last year, came in, was playing really well, and got injured. I'm not sure what the status is on his injury. I'm hoping it's not one that's going to keep him out for very long. A lot of the young guys really did step up. Number 17, I can't think of his name. It's not Cade Stover. Bryson Shaw. Bryson Shaw is another. He's not a true freshman. I think he's a redshirt freshman, but he came in. He made some plays. The player that got the most touchdown, or not the most touchdowns, but the most tackles, led the way with tackles, was at something what's called the bullet position, and it's basically the same type of position that they had at Michigan for a long time, and they called it the star, and it came over with Al Washington when they were doing their brand new defensive coordinators and everything like that, and I can't remember his name. Oh well, it'll come to me later. But he's a true freshman. True freshman led the way on tackles when it comes down to it on defense. I think, again, I'm hoping it's better than it was last year. Granted, we didn't play a team that is known for its passing. It was more known for its rushing. They're a rushing team this year. And but there were some flashes of hope, and I'll go ahead. I'll hold my breath. If I pass out, just make sure I'm breathing and I'm not swallowing my tongue. And I appreciate it. So that's my take on the game. And I'll go ahead and I'll cover the next game in our picks. Going up next.
All right. So first thing, Jimmy, I did listen to what you said for the most part, Jimmy, and you did have a thing talking about the Oklahoma. Our new logo, our mascot is the Oklahoma Bipolar Roller Coaster Team. I can't argue that. I will get to that when we talk about Oklahoma. Quick hit. Jimmy hit a lot about Ohio State. Ryan, you and me already kind of talked a little bit about C.J. Stroud and the playmakers they have. I mean, we're about to hit on Penn State here in a second. However, I still think Ohio State, regardless, is still the team to beat in the Big Ten. I don't really see them getting stumbled up too much in the Big Ten this year.
If they do, it looks like it's going to be Penn State.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Ohio State is still the cream of the crop. They're the team to beat.
They're the team to beat. They got playmakers all around. Don't get me wrong.
Running back.
Yeah, well, I'll say they have Williams and there's the other big boy and Master Teague. And don't get me wrong, they look great. The love of God, give that freshman the ball. Holy shit. You want to talk about lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
I said
about the running back.
Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
Like he took the swing pass and there was like 7 dudes just crowding on him and he just left. He was just by.
Yeah, I think that's we might end up seeing later in the year that offense runs through him. That might be the Zeke Elliott Ohio State offense that goes through him, and also, by the way, you got 2 NFL
All-American NFL wide receivers. Hey, so Ryan, Henderson, have fun dealing with him for the next 3 years. Like, enjoy that.
Yeah, we got linebacker. You take care of these.
But yeah, so first we'll talk about Penn State. First, probably. Best game of the week. I mean, the Florida State Notre Dame game was up there, but the Wisconsin Penn State game probably was the most entertaining value, like best game to watch.
Yeah.
Brian, your initial thoughts on your Lions?
So that was a great start to the season. I'll say that. Like, I don't think. I mean, if you listen to the broadcast, nobody gave Penn State a chance. Everybody picked Wisconsin to win,
including me. I will say, including me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did. I mean, even if I wasn't a Penn State fan, maybe I would have picked Wisconsin. But
if I give you $1 million to bet,
yeah, I would say it was the first half was a lot of exactly the same shit that I saw for the past year from Sean Clifford. I'll touch on a little bit on him later, but the ability for Yurcich to make changes in the offense in the second half, I think, was the game changer in that game. The defense looked outstanding. I think Jaquan Brisker, they call him the Warrior. Like, he is an outstanding player. Like, every chance for him to make a play, he is there and he makes the play, and it's on the spot. Like,
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, we talked about Thibodeau for Oregon is hands down the best player in the country. Not best defense, but he's the best player in the country. Besides him, I'd put Brisker in there. Like, he is fantastic.
That kid for Notre Dame, that safety for Notre Dame is pretty outstanding too. But the Jaquan Brisker is right up. I think he's right there with him. I think Ellis Brooks is the unsung hero on that linebacking crew. Like, we have Brandon Smith, Ellis Brooks, and Curtis Jacobs. Curtis Jacobs and Brandon Smith are 5-star guys. They're supposed to be there making the plays, but when it came down to it, every single play was made by Ellis Brooks until he got the targeting penalty, which you hate the targeting penalty. We've all talked about this over and over again.
It's got to change.
Yes. I mean, per the rule, it was helmet to helmet.
It was targeting by the rule.
Right. It was a good call by the refs, but the rule is stupid. Don't kick the game. Like, 15-yard penalty, don't kick the kid out of the game.
Yeah, and there needs to be a targeting 15-yard penalty, and there needs to be a targeting malicious get the hell out of the game. Like the rocket with the top, like when you try to do that. That's get out.
Right.
What happened there, they go so fast.
Yep.
And, like, to make a split decision like that.
The offensive guy leans in with his helmet too, and the defensive guy leans in with his helmet, and it's just always called on defense. Like,
yeah.
It happens, but I don't get too much into that. But the changes made in the second half, Penn State's offense started humming. Jahan Dotson is exactly what everybody thinks he is. He's an absolute playmaker. That guy is an absolute stud. Penn State has, who's the number 2 wide receiver? It's
Parker Washington.
Parker Washington is right there, right behind Dotson to take over the helm. Like, he's a big physical wide receiver. He can make the plays. He can run with the ball. Tight ends made some drops. Like, they're both really, really young. I think tight ends will figure it out. So Penn State has a 24/7 podcast that I listen to, and these guys talk about it. But the most important stat of the day is Sean Clifford, 0 turnovers.
Yep, and that's I talked about that a lot when I was talking about the Penn State. He had 9 interceptions in 9 games. You got the running backs, you got the wide receivers, you got the defense. You don't have to win the game, just don't lose the game.
Right.
And that's what he did.
Right, and the second half, his numbers were great. Like, he looked good. He looked calm. The offensive line started to play better. They gave him a lot more time. And that was the other thing. Our strength, pretty much the strength of our offense is that offensive line. I mean, we have, a couple NFL players that are, the right and left tackle are probably going to go to the NFL. They're a great big offensive line, and they didn't look very good in the first half. But, I mean, that's a testament to Wisconsin's defense. Like, they're very good, in the box type of defense. Their front seven's really, really good. The running game didn't work at all. It's kind of like we saw last night with the Cowboys and against the stout offensive or defensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You just can't run the ball in the middle. Then you make plays on the outside. In the second half, you saw Noah Cain instead of Noah Cain trying to run up the middle, it was like sweeps and screen passes to him on the outside and give him room, and he could make some plays. But overall, I think Penn State made a big step in the right direction. Their defense kept them in the game, and that's something that they're going to rely on all year long, which is a good thing to rely on. I mean, that defense is really, really good, I think. And I think the offense will come in right behind them. Yurcich, first game, calling plays at Penn State. Like, I think whatever adjustments Penn State makes here going forward are going to work. Yeah, I was super happy with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you guys definitely your defense is what it's built up to be. Like we talked a little bit before the game. Thought your linebackers played fantastic. Obviously, Brisker is all-world safety out there. I'm on a little pause to start to put them up there with so far with like the Georgia what we saw from Georgia just because like when we talked about Wisconsin is that one-dimensional thing where Penn State. I mean, I don't think you did, but I mean, you could have put all 11 dudes in the box on 1st and 10, and Wisconsin still would have ran the ball.
Yep.
I
mean, we still gave up 120. Like that's the thing. Penn State's defense gave up a decent amount of yards. Like they gave up 121 yards rushing to that Malusi guy from.
He's
Clemson.
pretty good. He's pretty
good. Like he came over from Clemson. He chose to go to Wisconsin because he knew if he went to Wisconsin, he was going to get the ball every other play. You know,
right?
So
if you're a running back and you want touches, Wisconsin's the place to go.
So he went there, and Penn State did give up a lot of yards, but when it came down in the red zone, I mean, they just clamped down and they made plays, and that's what you want a defense to do. You know?
Yeah, no, I agree, and so I like what I saw from Penn State again. And I talked about it a lot last week when I was talking about Penn State, specifically Clifford. You know, Clifford's on his 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years.
Yeah,
that is so hard for a 19, 20-year-old kid. And Yurcich does have knowing Yurcich because he was at Oklahoma State for a long time and he was at Texas. Like what I can tell you about him, he will not develop talent into an NFL talent, but he will take what he has and get the most of it at the college level and have great college level players, which at the end of the day, I mean, sure you want kids to go to the NFL, but I just want to win at this level. I don't really give a rat's ass what they do.
Which is almost the opposite of what like Penn State has been doing. Like they have good college football players, but when they go to the NFL, they almost seem to perform better. I mean, you look
Chris Godwin last night.
Chris Godwin is. I think. I mean, when it comes to wide receivers in the league, I mean, he's up there in the top 10 to 15. Like, at Penn State, he was like a number 2 or 3 guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, Chris Godwin's good enough that Mike Evans, Gronk, and Tom Brady, I think all said they would take pay cuts to be able to sign him to bring him back. Like, that's how bad they wanted him back. Like, and last night he played great. So we'll see. But he had
a fumble on the
yeah, still won the game. They're still in the game. But yeah, the Yurcich offense, like, it was week 1. You know, you can practice all you want, but until you get out there on the field, it's completely different. And you guys will get better and better and better. I think, I mean, tomorrow you'll play Ball State, so I don't give a shit.
They won the MAC, by the way, last year. And
Stop.
I'm glad that we're playing. Okay. I'm glad that we're playing a MAC team, and I'm glad we're playing Ball State. But if Penn State goes in thinking this could be a Tulane game, that's all I'm saying.
It could, possibly. But a week from tomorrow, we'll see what Auburn is. Like you said, they played Kent, or they played Akron.
Akron, yeah.
They won 60-10. Tomorrow they play Alabama State. So we're not going to get a good judge on them. But good teams kick the shit out of trashy teams. And that's what they're doing. So I think you call him Wonder Boy. But Bo Nix, you know, he's still there. He's a pretty, he's not a Heisman Trophy quarterback, but he's a good quarterback.
He's got another year under his belt. Like that guy, I'm sure he's confident, and I'm sure he understands
can move.
What's going on.
He throws the ball well, but he can move decently. They got the big old running back Tank back there. So I think next week, I mean, I haven't looked exactly what the games are, but I mean that one's gonna be up there for game of the week. Penn State and Auburn. That's gonna be
It's already been called it's a whiteout game. So we're having 2 whiteout games this year.
Oh, okay. So I was about to say where's it at, but if it's at Happy Valley, that helps obviously being in that environment. But yeah, so we're not gonna learn a bunch about Penn State or Auburn this week playing who you play, But next week with that one, yeah, like I said, like I'm looking. Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, Alabama, Florida is probably game of the week. But other than that, I think you guys are gonna be right up there. That's gonna be a fun game. So really intrigued with you guys. I've been talking about Dotson since like week 2 of last season. I forgot which Penn State, but I remember I was messaging you. I was like, Ryan, I don't know who this dude is, but you need to watch him because this guy is good and he's done nothing but be there.
Last year, this time he lit up. I mean, because I think we played Ohio State like week 2 or week 3 or something like that.
You played him really early.
Yeah, really early. Yeah. And he lit up Wade for. I mean, in a loss. I mean, we did lose by.
He had like. Did he have a $150?
Yeah, a $150. And he was catching it all over Wade, which was at that point was one of the top corners in college football. And
right.
Yeah, I think that put him on the national stage and said, "Oh God, this Penn State wide receiver is pretty damn good."
Yeah, he's fun to watch. So really interested to see how you guys are going to do defense. I think Auburn's going to be more of a test of a running and passing team to kind of get a better judge of the defense. But yeah, I think your offense is going to do nothing but store. It does suck for you. You got Auburn at home. Going on down the road, you do play at Iowa and at Ohio State, which will not be easy games.
Within 3 weeks, we got
you got Illinois in between there.
A little bit of a break of Illinois in the middle there, but yeah, that's going to be a tough. That's always tough. Like we always have that 3-week stretch. That's always tough.
Well, and I say before that is Indiana, but I think you guys got a little bone to pick with Indiana.
Yeah.
After last year,
that might be a good old beatdown.
Yeah.
I'll cross my fingers on that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Penn State's looking good. I think Yursich is going to just keep – because remember, this is a guy that Franklin has had his eye on for a long time. And Ohio State wouldn't let us talk to him, so we had to wait for him to leave Ohio State, and then he went down to Texas. Right? Yeah, he went down to Texas. Once that coaching change happened in Texas, Yursich is on the table. Franklin reached right back out and said, "Hey, you're coming to Penn State." So Franklin's had his eye on this guy for a long time, and so if one thing Franklin is Franklin's got an eye for talent. I know that for a fact. Like he's a good recruiter, and he knows he brings in the right guys. I think so. I think Yursich is just going to get better and better and better, and we'll see what. I mean, the sky's the limit for this Penn State offense. Defense already looks good. But you still always got that Ohio State team that's the thorn in the side there. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I'll say if the sky's the limit, then the sky is scarlet and silver, and that's your limit.
Yep. If you get past them, which we did 4 years ago, right?
Congratulations. That's well. But yeah, we'll see. So moving on to my boys and. Probably one of the biggest head tilt question mark games of the week. Just kind of like, the fuck happened? So for y'all that just looked at the scoreboard or watched the second half, I mean, OU won, but I think it was like, 45-40. And really interesting because I obviously going to work every morning. I listen to the local sports talk, and they've got a bunch of ex-players who are down there on the field, like they are on the sidelines. Ex-players that have played there in the last 4 or 5 years. They know a lot of these guys, and so for you guys that didn't watch the game, Tulane came out first 2 possessions and just rained down the field, scored twice, 2 touchdowns. OU scored. It was 14-7 after the second touchdown. And a lot of us were sitting here going, what the fuck's going on? The next 6 possessions Tulane had, I think they had a total of 25 yards in the next 6 possessions. And OU had 24 straight points. So this was going into halftime. We're like, there's the OU team. That's what we wanted to see. Like, okay. And then we go into halftime, and then, like Jimmy said in his, I think OU scored 3 points. And, Tulane came back, stormed back, and we ended up barely winning at the end. But listening to these players on the sideline, and Alex Grinch and, Jimmy brought it up. And it's obviously, also, Ryan, kind of what you're, not kind of, it is what you were talking about, with Nick Saban and the preparation.
Yeah.
And Alabama, They don't give a shit if they're up 100-0. They're looking to put your foot into the dirt and just twist.
It feels like at Alabama that's a professional football team, and it's a job. When you come there, you're there to work, and that's it. Like,
yeah, and
some other college football teams look like it's college kids like having fun.
Yeah,
you know?
well, and they've talked about.
I'm not saying that's Oklahoma. But
no, Oklahoma has always been, not always, obviously, because we've been pretty good in the past, but lately has been a scoreboard football team. They look at what the score is, and they let their foot off the gas, and they're like, "Oh, we've got this." And I forgot it was. I think it was Gabe Eichard and Curtis Lofton, who played for the Atlanta Falcons forever, like knows a thing or two about football. He said going into halftime, OU starters were already taking the tape off their wrists and their feet. Like, oh, this is over. Like, we're done.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and it's like, whoa, like, no. Like, this like, you got to play for 4 quarters. So, and Jimmy,
especially when you see that Tulane team. That Tulane team wasn't a joke. They were there to fucking play.
They were, and that's
my language. But they were there. They were there to. They weren't there to just get beat by
Oklahoma. They were there to fuck around. And what Oklahoma players. I mean, it's not. I don't know if they don't realize it or what, but I mean, a bunch of these Oklahoma players, like, they're going to go to play in the NFL. They will, just because, they're good. They're talented young men. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they're going to, like, get everybody's best punch. Like, these Tulane players that aren't on people's radar, NFL scouts' radars, do you know how you get on a radar? By going and taking one of these OU NFL dudes and, like, smashing them off the line and just, like, pushing their feet in the ground and be like, suck it. And, like, and I don't know what it is. Oklahoma has done that for a while. I've just played scoreboard football. They get behind, or they get up, and then they just let their foot off the gas. Don't know if it's Lincoln or Grinch or what, but it's...
You can't think it's Grinch. Well, I mean, the way the defense played, like, maybe there's some of that. Maybe it's lackadaisical. Like,
yeah.
It
happened last year.
Going into weeks and thinking that they're wins. I mean,
well, it's not so much going into weeks and thinking they're wins. It's we play great for a half, then we think it's over and we stop. Like last year when we lost to Kansas State, we were up 20 points against Kansas State going into the third quarter, and then we just stopped. And, Kansas State came roaring back and ended up beating us. Tulane, I think we were up at halftime. I think we were going in, it was like 34-14 or something. And I was like, okay, this is over. And they thought that. I will say, good points from Oklahoma. Our wide receiving crew is just unbelievable. Spencer Rattler, he went back to a lot of early season last year of trying to do too much, and instead of taking the easy part, and then ends up throwing an interception. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it took Lincoln Riley benching his ass at Texas for him to wake up.
We remember that last year.
Yeah. I mean,
it worked.
Oh, it worked like a charm. I'll get to that here in a second. But like his first interception. So Eric Gray, who's a...
Hey, Ross, can I ask you something real quick?
Shoot.
Are you going to be talking for the next about 3 minutes so I can go grab a drink?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about it.
Okay. All right, I'll be back, ladies and gentlemen.
Right on that. Don't worry, I'll talk to anybody, including myself. But so Spencer Rattler, on his first interception of the game, Eric Gray, who was a fantastic receiving back, flared out to the flats. Nobody within 10 yards of it, 15 yards. Like, could have easily just dumped it down to him and, let him. I mean, he would have got a first down. But instead of taking that easy check down, Spencer Rattler, for some reason, thought, oh, I've got, I think it was Marvin Mims, who is our super stud wide receiver. It's like, I've got him streaking down, and I'm going to fit this ball into the tiniest little window off my back foot, like check out my arm, and try to do something fucking crazy. And he threw it in triple coverage and he got intercepted. Like, come on, man. You got to be better than that. You got to be better than that. I mean, overall, I think he ended up with 300 yards, one rushing touchdown, one throwing touchdown, 2 interceptions. So overall, I mean, he didn't play himself out of the Heisman. Still had a pretty good game. But, just for a Heisman front runner, for a guy who played so well to make those same mistakes he was making early season last year, you don't expect that. And kind of like what Ryan and I were talking about a little earlier, like, well, and what took Spencer Rattler to wake up was him getting benched against Texas. Well, I mean, we put in our backup quarterback, and to put it in perspective, I don't even know what his name was. He actually did well. He did decent.
Wasn't it? The hell was his name?
I think he's down at he's an SMU starting quarterback now. Actually, now that I think about it.
What the hell? Yeah, he is.
Looking it up. Yeah, sorry guys.
If you don't remember it, I'm definitely.
Oh yeah. Tanner Mordecai.
Yeah, Mordecai. That's an easy name to remember.
Hey, by the way, who in his first game for SMU threw for 317 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing because Penn State's backup quarterback that transferred last year to Kentucky threw for 8 trillion yards and sent 4,000 touchdowns. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, this year, I mean, nothing against Tanner Mordecai. If Spencer Rattler gets benched, Caleb Williams, the number 1 quarterback in the country, who has been, everybody said, is Justin Fields and then actually maybe a little bit better than Justin Fields, is waiting in the helm.
No, you got that Penn State transfer.
That guy who's not even listed on our depth chart. he's not even listed on it. But yeah, you got this other guy waiting here that if he comes in, he might not let it go. He's real deal. When we saw the red and white game, everybody was excited for Rattler, and everybody came out of that game going, "Holy shit, Rattler's good, but this next guy, oh my god."
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I did take a break and went and grabbed a drink. So I don't know if you touched on this, but do you think there's a little bit of Grinch's defense looked good last year, right?
It was great. It was fantastic last year.
It was a refreshing thing for Oklahoma football to have a defense that can make plays and stop people when they need to stop them and get turnovers and all those things. Do you think that there's a little bit of a fluke there?
No, I don't.
For them to have Tulane score 35 points against them, do you think Grinch will get it figured out and the defense will be just as good as they were last year?
Yes, absolutely. I 100% do.
Okay.
Their defense, we brought our defense was very good last year. Very, very good. And we brought back 10 starters, including our entire secondary. The only guy we lost is Ronnie Perkins, who's playing in the NFL, and he was a wrecker down on the defensive line.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we did give up 35 points. However, it's another one of those things of, are you, did you watch the game, or did you just looking at of the 35 points Tulane scored, only one of their scoring drives was over 50 yards. They got the ball at the 50-yard line or in OU's territory because our offense was stupid with the ball 4 times.
Well, how many times did you guys turn the ball over?
Interception.
Twice. Is your so what you're saying there is they lost a position battle on the.
Yeah. I mean, their touchdown, the first 2 were 55 and 75 yards, which okay. Their next touchdown drive was 40 yards. Their next one was 47. Then they had an 80-yard drive. They got the ball on short field multiple times, which I mean, granted, you want your defense against Tulane to be able to shut them down, stop them there. However,
looking at the numbers, the quarterback had almost 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and he was also the leading rusher with 34 yards. So, like, where did all the other yards come? So, to your point, they just short field a lot.
Well, so short field a couple times. There was blown coverage a couple times on the tight end, and that's kind of what scares me is like moving forward, especially Iowa State way down the road. Just saying, I brought him up in the thing, and I hate it because he went to Iowa State, but Kohler, the tight end, he's 6'6", 250 out of Iowa State. He is a stud from Norman, went to Norman North. That's how I know him. And he loves beating OU because OU didn't recruit him. So every time he plays OU, he's got a chip on his shoulder. But OU lost the tight end a couple times just on a blown coverage, and it was a little concerning. 2 things, though, about actually, I'll say 3 things about this game that I really liked. One is Mario Williams, true freshman.
He's the best you got there, right?
No, the best we have is Marvin Mims. He's the best we have, wide receiver. He had 5 catches for 117 yards. Mario Williams, he is he's tiny, 5'9", 180 pounds, but he is Reggie Bush. Like, you throw him a bubble screen, or who was your boy that you had a couple years ago at Penn State?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, he plays for Denver now.
Yeah, get him out. Just give him the damn ball and let him go. And I saw him, Mario Williams, one time. It was a bubble screen, and he kind of caught a bubble screen. He took, 2 steps forward, and, the whole, there's 3.
KJ Hamler, by the way.
Yeah, KJ Hamler. We had 3 secondary, cave on him, and he just went, yeah, no, and he just took off left and just blew by them all. So it was fun because we haven't had that in a while.
Does he return punts for you guys?
He's one of our 2. He returns kicks. Him and Marvin Mims trade off on returning punts, but he's back there on the kickoff. Him and then Billy Bowman. Oh, yeah, sorry. 4 things, and then I'll stop on OU. So, Billy Bowman, it was one of the best number 1 rated, not number 1, he was number 1 or number 2 athlete recruits. He was one of those athletes, right? And he could have played running back, wide receiver. We talked him into playing defense back. Granted, he ended up dropping it. But, so picture this, Ryan. If you have a quarterback on the 20, 25-yard line, throwing the ball to somebody on the goal line, right? You can kind of see the trajectory of the ball in your head.
Yeah.
In the apex. Billy Bowman was on the 15-yard line and literally just jumped up and damn near caught it in his chest, and it bounced off his. He was NBA Russell Westbrook up there. And
you said safety, free safety?
Well, we got him as our nickel back right now because he's our true freshman back that gets in there.
Yeah, good man.
Yeah, but he just jumped. He just went up and up and up, and we're all just what the hell? And granted, he ended up dropping it, but just the athleticism, you're just holy shit.
That's good. That's because Penn State has had some guys like that in years past where they're playing in high school and they're playing an offensive position, and Penn State recruits them as a linebacker or a safety or something like that, and they have to transition guys away from playing the position they want to play.
Yeah,
which is good. I mean, if a kid is willing to be hey, I play running back, but when I get recruited to Oklahoma, I'm going to play safety or I'm going to play.
I'll play whatever. Tell me where you play. I'll play wherever. Yeah. So he was a lot of fun. The other 2. That one that I really liked, Latrell McCutcheon. I think that's going to be a name in the future. Big cornerback, 6'2", 190. As a true freshman. Mm-hmm. It was just one play. He played great when he was out there. And don't get me wrong, he covered well. But there was one play that I've watched multiple times. When you get up there on man coverage, or you probably didn't, but when you see man coverage and, cornerback, when it comes, you jam him. You just Yeah, smack him at the line.
Get him off the line within 5 yards. Yeah.
Latrell McCutcheon, they snapped the ball. He one-handed, jammed it, and knocked the wide receiver on his ass with one hand.
Damn.
And we were just kind of like, okay, well, we haven't had that in a while. Like,
yeah.
All right. And the last thing is, and it's thing because I hate giving them credit because they're annoying. OU got a transfer safety, Key Lawrence, from the SEC. We didn't know how much he was going to play. Like, just got in. He's a sophomore, 6'2", 210. And seeing him out there and, like, just what that SEC players do, it was just different. How hard he hit. Like, he was out there to rip people's heads off. Like, he wanted to start fights every damn play. Like, he was out there to hurt people. And, I mean, it's a little bad because it's like, all right, because we didn't have that. It's nice to have it.
It's good to have. Yeah,
it's good to have. But like
we need killers, man.
Yeah, you do. But it's like, oh shit! Like you tell me these are all over the SEC, and we got one from Tennessee. Like this isn't even an Alabama or Georgia one. This is a Tennessee one. Fuck. But yeah, to have him back there, it was like he was smashing people, and you're just like, okay, like, that's good. So
yeah. The transfer portal has been pretty good at Penn State this year as well. Like that. The
transfer portal in general.
The one big question we had at Penn State was like, what's the defensive line going to look like? What's the pass rushers going to look like? And they look pretty damn good. We have that transfer from Temple, and Temple's not a powerhouse, but this guy we got from Temple looked like he was all over the quarterback the whole game. When he was in every play he was in, he was there. He was pushing. If he didn't get to the quarterback, he was close. Like he created, I think he had a forced fumble. Like Ibikadi, I'm not going to try to say his name, but he looked good as well. But yeah, the transfer portal has been pretty good at Penn State as well.
I think the transfer portal in general has just been. I mean, it's nice. I don't like it because it just gives instead of competing, players just leave, which sucks. But it is what it is in the game. But yeah,
I'm
overall,
looking forward to this particular running back. Like we
love it.
He might, love it. Yeah, we haven't seen him yet. He might not see him this week either. Like Franklin, I guess during his press conference is like keeping it under wraps. I don't know if there's some off the field issues with him, but there's 3 players for Penn State that he just didn't travel with the team to Wisconsin.
Oh, he didn't even travel with the team? I didn't know that.
Didn't travel. Like there's 2 other guys that didn't travel either, and that usually points to an off the field issue or something. If it's a injury or something like that, he's very open and honest about it. But when it's off the field, he gets angry at the reporters that ask the questions, and he doesn't say anything after that. But yeah.
Oklahoma this week, Western Carolina. I mean, we're going to go in. We're going to.
No, yeah, I was just looking at your guys' schedule. So you got Western Carolina, and then you got
Nebraska.
A team that's worse than them, which is Nebraska, and then with West Virginia, which I think didn't they get beat this week?
They got beat. They're not bad. Kansas State at Kansas State. I mean, we've had troubles with Kansas State.
That's your first game of the year.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn is good. That running back for K-State is fast and good. And then Texas, and I hate to say it, I'm not saying Texas is back, but I will say they're better. They're definitely
better. Is that a home game this year or what?
We got a few of them. We got a few of them.
No, I was going to say, is Texas is that at home or?
I think we're playing them.
And we got to go to that game someday. We'll get the three-headed monster back together. Me, you, and Jimmy.
Yeah, it's fine. I got 3 tickets, so it's fine. So, anyways,
by the way, I am going to Rutgers this year. So for everyone that cares, that for Jimmy and Ross, the only 2 guys that listen to this, I am going. So I am an hour and a half away from State College now, which is very nice. So I get to go to games, but I'm going to the Rutgers game this year, and I get to go to Cowboys Giants in New York, which should be fun.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
I guess it's New Jersey, but
that'd be a good one. But it was so that's kind of a quick rundown. Last thing we've got, per always, our picks,
and then the Cowboys.
We'll talk to the Cowboys offline. Fuck the Cowboys.
Okay.
But yeah, so our picks for the week, games we got: Texas and Arkansas. Texas -6.5. Oregon, Ohio State. Ohio -14. Iowa State. Iowa State -3.5. That spread was a little surprising.
Yeah, the way that Iowa looked this week, that's a surprise.
Yeah, I agree. Washington, Michigan -6, and then Pitt and Tennessee, Pitt -3.5. Going in last week, side note, Jimmy did come out on top. None of us did great by any means.
Jimmy also thought there weren't spreads. So.
That's true. And he still won. That's just sad on our part, right? But yeah, Jimmy went 3-2. Then Ryan and I went 2-3. So hopefully we can get back on track and put Jimmy back down in his place. But Jimmy, picks for the week. What you got?
All right, we got this week's picks. Starting off, we've got Texas versus Arkansas. Texas is favored by as a -6.5 favorite, and this one's pretty easy. I got Texas. Texas looked really good in their opener against Louisiana. I actually had I had Texas to win, but I think it was they didn't cover the spread, and I was an idiot and I forgot that we actually pick against the spread. but Texas won, and it looked okay against a pretty good Louisiana team, a ranked Louisiana team. So we'll see where Louisiana goes from here. But their opponent is Arkansas. And Arkansas was losing to Rice at the half, and they were tied going into the fourth. They beat Rice in the fourth quarter. But if I'm doing the old eye test, Texas looked better than Arkansas. So I got Texas to win on this one, obviously, and then to cover the spread as well. I do want to bring up Bijan Robinson, who was very close to committing to Ohio State. He's going to be a thorn in OU and Ross, your side, for this year and the next, because that kid, he's something special. I don't see him being anything. I see him being a possible dark horse Heisman runner next year, because there are too many guys that are starting to stand out this year already. One of them being Bryce Young out of Alabama. Just like, what the hell? Anyway. And then we've got Oregon, Ohio State. And I'm going to be watching this one very close. As of right now, well, the spreads that we are picking against are Ohio State is favored by -14. It's in Columbus. And this one's pretty simple as well. I got Ohio State covering on this one. Ohio State ultimately looked better in the second half. And then going back and watching Oregon against Fresno State, it really didn't impress me all that well, and particularly on offense. They were tied with Fresno State going into the fourth, and that shouldn't give Duck fans a vote of confidence going up against an Ohio State defense that could be bad. Right? If you're a bad offense and you're going up against a semi-good defense, a bad defense, you could look really good. But I don't think Ohio State's defense is ipso facto bad. Their bread and butter is their rushing. And Ohio State, who, again, like I said, gave up 163 yards to Mo Ibrahim, who could have been one of the best running backs in the entire country if he didn't get hurt. Yeah, that's a tough one. They did look really good defensively speaking, though. They do get 2 DBs back who were out week 1 due to a suspension. I guess they were shooting some people up with some air rifles. And the big thing right now is Kayvon Thibodeau. And going into that game on Saturday, if he's on the field, if he plays, at that point, he's the best player on the field. Right now, I believe he's the projected number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year. He's eligible because I think he's a junior this year. Kid is a monster, a monster. But as of right now, he's day to day. And from everything I've heard, his mindset is if I can play, I'm going to play. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. So it's going to be tough. And it's going to be him against Nicholas Petit-Frere, who's our left tackle. And he's our best offensive lineman right now. In terms of all of the offensive linemen, and like I said, I talked up the offensive line before. Of all of the 5 starting offensive linemen right now, Nicholas Petit-Frere is by and far the best one, and will probably be. He could be a first rounder. He's that good. And like I said, defensively, they did look pretty good. I believe all 3 of their turnovers were forced fumbles, and gave up 370 yards to a pretty good Fresno State. Like Fresno State is bringing back a lot of experience, from what I understand. But also looking through the rest of their schedule, Ohio State might be the best offense that they play all year. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's difficult to say how they're going to be offensively. What I saw, I wasn't too impressed. They looked kind of flat coming into it, and then their defense sort of was able to give them opportunities to come back and win in the fourth quarter against Fresno State. And again, I don't think Fresno State is bad, but I don't look at Fresno State and think a national championship contending Oregon shouldn't be having that much trouble with Fresno State. So actually, I got a score prediction on this one. I got Ohio State 49, Oregon 29. I think Oregon will probably be able to score, but it'll probably be not. It won't be enough for Ohio State and their offense to be able to score on Oregon's defense, especially if Thibodeau's out. All right. And moving on to Iowa State. Right now, Iowa State is favored by -3.5. This game is in Ames, which is always difficult, and Ross can attest to this one because I believe OU has lost to Iowa State in Ames a couple times. But seeing what I saw in Iowa and Iowa State in both of their games, I got Iowa in this one. Like, I got Iowa winning in this one. Iowa looked way more physical, way faster, and they're probably going to win pretty big. Iowa State struggled with and then snuck by UNI, and Iowa looked all kinds of physical and ready to take on Breece Hall. I'm really excited to see what that Iowa defense can do against Breece Hall. So it's going to be really interesting. Granted, they looked really good against a bad Northwestern offense. I didn't bring up before, but I want to bring it up now. Northwestern's quarterback their starting quarterback was a quarterback who lost his job last season because he was playing so bad. And I can't remember if I brought that up in the last podcast, but that's what you do. Like, your good defenses stop bad offenses, and that's it. So it's going to be interesting to see how Breece Hall can do against that Iowa, but I got Iowa in this one. Then we got Washington and our rivals, that team up north. And Michigan is favored by -6. It is in Ann Arbor. And a lot of people like to say, oh, man, it must be so hard to play in Ann Arbor. You know, you got 100,000+ fans in the stands this year, too. Everything I've heard about Ann Arbor from former players, like on podcasts and stuff like that, they always talk about it's not really that hard to play in Ann Arbor because the way the bowl works, the noise just goes straight up. So you would think there'd be a lot of noise pollution, like at Ohio State or Penn State or at Oregon, to be honest with you. But I guess that's not the case. It's actually pretty easy for them to communicate. That doesn't mean that it's not a big stage. You know, it's the big house. It's a college football landmark. And it could get to them. And it could get to Washington. You know, they're playing Washington. And here's the other thing. Washington lost to Montana. The Grizz, the Montana Grizz. That is an FCS team. Let me say it again. Capital F, capital C, capital S, Fox, Charlie, Sierra. Okay? They lost and struggled to Montana, who is a good Montana team, I'll give you that. But it is an FCS team. And as much as it hurts me to do this, I got Michigan winning in this one. I got Michigan to cover that -6. I think it's going to be pretty ugly. And one of the things is Montana was able to move the ball against Washington's defense, and Michigan ran the crap out of the ball. And they're probably going to go 2-0. And like I said, it's going to continue that overreaction to you Michigan football fans, but easy, pump the brakes. You got 2 wins. Easy. Wait till you play somebody with some type of merit. And based off of that, I don't think Washington has a leg to stand on in this one. So I got Michigan big. And now we've got our last game, Pittsburgh versus Tennessee. You could probably bet that these 2 teams have the most amount of letters between the 2 of them for the entire week 2 of college football. But in all seriousness, like Pitt did put up 51 points against their out-of-conference team during week 1, which was a bad UMass team. UMass didn't win a single game last year. And a bad UMass team. And then Tennessee beat up their out-of-conference opponent, Bowling Green State. By the way, I went there for a semester, so technically you could call me a honorary Falcon. So that being said, we really don't have an idea how these teams are actually. You get an idea for what a team is when they play some competition, when they play somebody tough, right? The big games is what you really find out about a team. And between their 2 opponents, you can count on one hand with 0 fingers the amount of wins they had last year. Both teams won no games last year. You want to talk about clunkers? Like, these are clunkers. And Pittsburgh and Tennessee did win both of them. So on this one, I'm going to go with the team that did better against their bad opponent. One was more successful at producing offense and limiting their opponent on defense, and that team was Pitt. So I'm going to go ahead and take Pitt to cover the 3.5 on this one, probably win by a touchdown. And it's a coin toss, to be honest with you. I went statistically on this one based on stats against their bad team, and now they're gonna go face to face and see what happens. And to be honest with you, if this game had a bowl name, I'd call it the I Don't Care Bowl, because neither of these teams are going to be even close to the hunt for a conference championship. Pitt out of the ACC and Tennessee out of the SEC. Like, there's no way they're getting anywhere near it. So those are my picks, and I will see you all next week. Love you. Let's watch more college football. Bye.
All right. So first game.
By the way, every time we break and go to Jimmy,
we're breaking it down like white boy style.
We do the suck it for a good solid 5-10 seconds.
Yes, it's pretty good. If you guys can see the camera, that'd be great. So first game, Texas, Arkansas. Texas -6.5. Jimmy took Texas. I'll go first on this one, Ryan. I'm taking Texas. I think Arkansas is pretty good.
You piece of shit, Ross. How dare you?
I know. I think Arkansas is pretty good. But like I said, I don't think Texas is back and ready to be in the national spotlight and whatnot yet, but I do think they are better. I think Bijan Robinson and the way Sark's using them is very impressive. Hudson Card, their young quarterback, just having to get the job done. So I do like Texas to win this by more than a touchdown.
What's the spread?
6.5.
Yeah, I'm taking Arkansas just because you guys both took Texas. Arkansas did look good week 1.
They did. They did. I will say that. Yeah.
I'm a big Sarkisian guy too. Like when he went to Texas, I should be taking Texas here, but my goal is to pull up the rear in the picks every year, which I do. So I'm picking Arkansas, which is probably not a good pick, but I got to try to get the right.
Hey, well, to back you up, like last night, what's his nuts? ESPN glasses. Ah! Scott Van Pelt. Scott Van Pelt took Arkansas last night.
Yeah, SVP.
Yeah, SVP took Arkansas last night. So.
Did he really?
Yeah. I think
he's got that guy on the show too. That's the big.
Yeah, so does Steve.
Buddy.
Stanford Steve, not Soda Steve, but I think they both like. And not gonna lie, I think Texas is gonna win the game. The more than a touchdown worries me. I think Arkansas might keep it close. But second game, the second best game, I guess we'll call it for the week. The Oregon Ducks versus Ohio State. Ohio State is favored by 14.
What?
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. Jimmy, shockingly, he took the Buckeyes. I know. I mean, just kind of like Wilson be a Heisman Trophy winner, but he's going to give me shit for that one. But, yeah,
by the way, Jimmy, Ross and I talk about you picking Wilson for the Heisman Trophy every single day.
Yeah, just making fun of you
back
all the time. I mean, it's in Jimmy took Ohio State. It's at Ohio. Oregon barely snuck by Fresno. Thibodeau, we don't know if he's playing yet. They do have some pretty good running backs, which Ohio State did give up some runs. So we'll see how the Oregon running game does. I just don't think they have the firepower to match the weapons that Ohio State plays. That has. I just don't. And so I think it might be close for about a quarter, maybe.
Maybe a half.
Maybe.
Minnesota kept it tight.
Yeah, but
they were up at halftime.
I think Ohio State pretty much runs away with this, and like Oregon gets the booty.
Ross, update your spreadsheet. I'm taking Ohio State on this one.
I'm updating.
You've sold me. I think the struggles that we saw. I mean, I don't want to overstate this, but Ohio State struggled very much in the first half against Minnesota.
They did. It was 14-10.
In the second half, they did not struggle at all.
No.
They came out firing on all cylinders.
They look like Ohio State. They look like Ohio State.
I think they roll into Columbus firing on all cylinders. I think that
they're going to be fired up. The crowd's going to be rowdy.
Right. They're going to be doing that stupid OH crap, and it's going to be a bunch of that. They're going to dot the I. They're going to do all that crap.
They got to remind themselves how to spell their own goddamn state every fucking game.
Correct.
That thing.
It's Ohio. But but I think they run away this game. They go up. They might be up. They might win by 20 points.
Oh yeah, I could easily see that. So next one, the game of the week, the big one, the Cyhawk. Iowa State in Ames.
Is that an X-Men character? I'm pretty sure that's.
Oh, it could be. I bet you.
Yeah.
It's
Cyclops and Hawkeye's child.
It's nerdy that you even knew the ones to combine off the top of your head. I'm just saying. So it is in Ames. It's not a night game. I was hoping it was going to be a night game because, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about Ames at night is not a place you want to play against that team. But Iowa State, Iowa, in Ames. Jimmy took Iowa. Ryan, which you got?
Yeah, I'm taking Iowa as well. I think Iowa looked really, really good first week. Breece Hall's an amazing running back. I think he's really, really good, but I think Iowa's the daddy in this rivalry.
That's true.
I know Iowa State is an up-and-coming team in the Big 12, and they look really good, and they give Oklahoma problems. They give everybody problems in that conference. The coach is awesome, but I still think Iowa is the team to beat.
I will Yeah, I mean, I think first off, I think this will be a fantastic game. Like I'm going to be all eyes on this game. Iowa is the daddy, I guess. Is that what you call them? The daddy of this rivalry.
They've won 5 in a row, by the way.
Right. Yes, I say they've won a lot. The one
But
thing,
not by much, to be honest.
yeah, they've been close games. A lot of them. The one thing in the Matt Campbell era, I have very quickly learned is do not judge Iowa State by their first week small time school. They always like last year, and Iowa State was pretty fucking good last year. They lost 31-14 to Louisiana.
Which ended up being a pretty good football.
They ended up being a pretty good team, but they lost 30. But if Louisiana plays Iowa State at the end of the season, I'm taking Iowa State, regardless of how good Louisiana is. And they just the year before that they played Northern Iowa and beat them by 3 in triple overtime. And then go on to play OU to a 1-point game, beat Texas, West Virginia, all sorts of stuff. So week 1, they didn't play well against Northern Iowa. I am not reading too much into that. Iowa State is incredibly good football team. They all Brees Hall could have gone to the NFL very easily. He is an NFL. The way he runs is an NFL running back. Yeah. I think he'll be good at that. Kohler, the tight end, he's fantastic. They have some big-time defensive players, big hard hitters that could have gone to the NFL. They all got together and said that they wanted to come back for this. I think they brought back like 20 of 22 starters this year. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. Hasn't progressed like I thought, but like we said, Brees Hall, absolutely fantastic running back. I think he's going to have a big game. But I think Kohler, the tight end, and Xavier Hutchinson. So it's starting to work out for Iowa State because they're playing some outside. But we talked about this when OU would lose to these teams, right? I'd always bring it up that they're building teams to beat OU because Mike Stoops liked these small, quick cornerbacks. And then all these other guys, they went out and just got these big bad boy guys. Like, for instance, Kohler is 6'6", the tight end. Jared Russ, I think he's like 6'4". Xavier Hutchinson, their number 1 wide receiver, is 6'4", 210. They've got these monster guys on the outside with Brees Hall. I like Iowa State. I think they get it done. And the way that they play football, with all the realignment, if Iowa State moved to the Big Ten the way they play football, I think it would fit in with the way Big Ten plays.
You think better than Nebraska or what?
Well, Nebraska's been a pretty good fit for you guys. So, but no, give me Iowa State on this. That's going to really shock everybody. The Big 12 guy took the Big 12 team. The 2 Big 10 guys took the Big 10 team. Shocking, I know, to it all, but
what's the spread? What's the spread again?
3.5, Iowa State.
Okay.
So next game, interesting one. Washington, who lost to Montana.
Yeah.
At Michigan. Michigan's favored by 6. You gave me shit for picking Texas. Jimmy picked Michigan.
Yeah, you kind of got to go Michigan here.
I go Michigan.
I'm going Michigan as well. Losing to Montana is...
It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign of things to come.
I mean, do they still have the Boise State coach there? Is it Peterson?
Chris Peterson? I think so.
Chris Peterson. Yeah, that's damn near quit first game like the UConn coach. Like, I
Yeah.
think UConn's coach, didn't he, or was it UConn? Yeah, I think he retired after the first game
Yeah.
after they lost
He did, yeah.
whoever. Losing to Montana is damn near on par with that. Like, how the hell do you lose to Montana? I mean, it's pretty unbelievable, and I don't see how Washington can travel across the country, go to Michigan, and play in the big house in a rowdy crowd against Michigan, who is kind of. And it's way too early to say that they found their identity, but like,
well, I think
a team that can pound the rock and just beat them in the trenches. Like, I don't think Washington is ready for that.
no, not at all. And I mean, offensively, we've talked about Michigan's question mark. Like we think they might have found their identity, but time will tell. But the Washington is starting a true freshman quarterback who threw 3 picks against Montana. I'm not saying Michigan's defense is fantastic, but I can tell you Michigan's defense is better than Montana.
Yeah.
And if you threw 3 picks against Montana, Michigan is going to eat you alive.
And also, Michigan might lose the next 4 games after that, but I'm pretty sure they're going to beat the shit out of Washington.
Yeah, it's possible. And
I might eat my words on this. Maybe Washington gets fired up and they come battling back after a disgusting loss against Montana, but I don't see it happening.
so, and granted, I didn't watch the game, so this might just be a mistype for ESPN. But Camden Sirmon, 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 who was Missoula, Montana, a dual threat quarterback at 6'1", 195. Okay, got all that?
Yep.
He apparently was the Washington Huskies' leading tackler last week against Montana. I don't know what position he is playing because ESPN still has him listed as a quarterback. But apparently he had 9 tackles.
Yeah, maybe he plays special teams. Maybe he gets in there nickel packages.
I don't know. But when you have a guy that was a dual threat quarterback, listed quarterback everywhere, and he is your leading tackler in a game you lose, and now you're going to go against Michigan running backs.
Yeah, what happened? I mean,
Good luck.
You have all season to prepare for your first game, and maybe there's some overlook. Maybe there is some like, hey, we were preparing for Michigan the whole. By the way, I've always hated this, like the thing that people do, like, oh, we overlooked this team because we had Michigan the next week, or we had Ohio State the next week, or we had Oklahoma the week after that, or something like that. It's like we overlooked the Western Kentucky, or we overlooked the Montana, or whoever it is. Like, I always hated that. You have all year to prepare, and if you're not prepared to play a team that is an FCS team or whoever the hell they are, like, then what are you doing, you know?
Oh, by the way, that game was in Washington, just so you know.
Yeah, what? I mean, that's a bad. We were talking before about the Pac-12, or we talked during the podcast about the Pac-12. That was one of their teams that was supposed to be good this year.
They're appearing 20th.
Yeah, they're in the top 25. They're ranked. They were supposed to be a good team, and they go and lose Montana. What are you guys doing?
At home. Like, Stop it. So, yeah, give me Michigan, and that one could turn into a blowout. It could.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep.
Last game, as Jimmy said, the teams with the most letters in them. Good call, Jim. Good call, Jim.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and Tennessee.
By the way, Jimmy, we love you.
That's debatable. But Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Pittsburgh's a 3.5-point favorite. Jim took Pitt. I'm going with Tennessee on this one. Tennessee, first off, their coach is an ex-OU boy, so got to root for Josh Heupel. And they lost a lot in the transfer portal. Jesus Christ. Granted, they all came to OU, which I can't bitch too much, but we got their starting left tackle, running back, and safety now all on our team. But Josh Heupel has always, like when he's at UCF, everywhere he's been, he has done very good at offense. He can put an offense on the field. And he did, I mean, granted, they didn't play, they played Bowling Green, which, not the most hoorah, ride home to your mama team. But they have Milton, the quarterback from Michigan, out there, ran the ball incredibly well. They had 2 guys over 120 yards. They had close to 500 yards of offense. Graham's against Bowling Green, and Pittsburgh is pretty good. I looked them up. I didn't watch the game, but they do have a good front four that could cause some problems depending on how good the offensive line can play. But I think Josh Heupel and the offense that they have is going to get the job done. I don't think it's going to be a big win, but I think it'll be more than 3.5. So give me Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going the same way. I'm going Tennessee as well. It's surprising that Tennessee's not favored in that game. The way that Tennessee played last week. I know Pitt has got some things going, but we'll see what happens. 3.5 points. I might actually take Tennessee to win outright, and given 3.5 points, I'll take the 3.5 points.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty no-brainer.
Yeah. So.
And Pitt's going to win, and we're going to both look like idiots.
Jimmy's probably going to rub it in our face and all that crap, which, whatever. Even a blind nut finds a squirrel, guys. So, all right, so that is what we got for this week. Again, we got Ryan back, so we go along.
I'm here for the long haul. Back, moved into the new house, got my setup, and kind of settled. Obviously, still putting the house together and all that stuff, but I'm settled in and ready to go.
He's got a computer, so you don't have to listen to me ramble for 45 minutes by myself and talk to the wall. So,
by the way, we do need to get the third one back because going to get a drink and taking a piss during the podcast is tough when there's only 2 people.
Unless it's me talking, because I literally just didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't miss a beat. So, everybody, thank you for listening. Next week, we're going to hit back up. We hit back up on all of our thoughts on our teams and next week game and recap what we got. Probably talk a little bit.
Maybe touch a little bit in the NFL next week, since it's kind of a slow week in college football. We do have Iowa State, which is kind of the big game this week. But maybe we can hit some NFL on the way in. Yeah,
right now we just had the one game, so we'll hit it after the full week of football and kind of do a quick thoughts on the NFL next week and whatnot. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. Talk to you next week. I'm out.
See you guys.